Welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, aka TheIndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you, and let's party. Welcome. We got our boy King Nirvana in the chat. Shout out to Ty Cobb. Welcome. And, of course, my co-host Morty in the building. Don't forget, guys, every donation comes with a treat for Morty. So welcome to the party. This is going to be an interesting one. Because we are talking with James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson about the woke right, something that has come up a lot. And there is, I'm not really sure, kind of a tension between James Lindsay and Dave Smith, because the way that they use the term woke right is very different. But I think it gets lost in the tribalism, as if one of them is woke and one of them is not woke. I don't think either of them are woke. I just am more in the camp of Dave Smith's definition of what the woke right is, and basically just meaning the types of mentalities that you see with the woke left, the SJWs. You see that happening on the right. So without further ado, let's dive in. As always, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Nice to see you, Dr. Lindsay.
It's good to see you,
It's
Dr.
been
Peterson.
2 years, eh?
It's been 2 years.
Yeah. So, what are you in trouble for now?
The woke right.
Lay it out, man.
It's a fraught term, right? People see it as paradoxical because you have woke, which they associate with left. You have right, which they associate obviously with the right. And so now you've got a paradox.
That's already out the gate. People are like, well, I thought woke was the left and the right is the right. Well, that's how we were using it until the woke right came to be about.
Left, you have right, which they associate obviously with the right. And so now you've got a paradox. And so I've caused myself some trouble by calling a radical segment, not the whole right, a radical segment of the right, woke right, which I kind of started doing, I guess, last fall, September. I started using it before that, the term. I didn't invent the term. A lot of people accuse me of inventing the term or credit me with it. This term has been in rough circulation, floating around in the internet space for at least since middle of 22. So it's not a brand new term. I just adopted it and went kind of hard about it.
And that's an important thing that, people are getting frustrated that like, oh, you're using this woke right terminology and da-da-da-da-da. But I do think it is it does exist. And I think it's important to be able to identify that. And then, if that is identified and be like, well, actually we want to call it this, then that's a better way to approach it than, just kind of pretending that it's not there. Shout out to Abe Dinkus. Welcome to the party. I completely agree that the woke right is very detrimental to the right in the same way that the woke left was detrimental to the left. And so the left will embrace and use this as a massive weapon against us, and already is, which is precisely why we need to be sure what it is that we're actually talking about. So those of us who are not woke can ostracize the woke people and show that we're not part of that, in the same way that, us as MAGA had to separate ourselves from the rhinos and the neocons. We are now having to do that with the woke right.
Middle of 22. So it's not a brand.
And to just type on that, it's not going to go away just from us not talking about it. That's not going to happen.
Floating around in the internet space for at least since middle of 22. So it's not a brand new term. I just adopted it and went kind of hard about it. And the simplest explanation I give people for, well, what do you mean by woke right? How does that make sense? And I say, well, it's woke people who call themselves conservatives. And some of them don't, though. They call themselves right wing.
That's it.
And they distinguish that conservatives and right wing are different. But it's woke people. So the whole suite of behaviors, beliefs, even the deep metaphysical constructs underneath those beliefs. And as you recently pointed out, I think the psychology that generates those beneath all of that, the cluster B personality disorders are presenting, and the psychopathologies, psychopathy itself sometimes, all of that kind of feeds upward into this concept of woke, which I think we, can talk pretty fruitfully about.
Yeah. And so as I have certain disagreements about the usage of the term in general, it does exist and it is really there. And Abe saying the left is using to say MAGA is the woke right, but they can only do that because we, MAGA, and the right wing at large have not adequately defined what the woke right is. So if we have a good definition, which again, I think Dave Smith has a much better definition than James Lindsay, but they are both talking about the same issue. So if we have a clear definition of what exactly is the woke right, then we can demonstrate, well, woke is this and MAGA is this. So they're not the same thing. But we have to be able to determine first, this is woke, not just the woke left. This is woke. Once we understand that, then we can compare and contrast to what MAGA actually is. Shout out to the Caucasian Sasquatch. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Said if the right claim victimhood status through identity, then sure.
Bingo.
And don't they? And don't they? Shout out to Nick Luchetti, moderator to the stars. Well, one day. I'll be a star one day. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Let's dive right back in here.
Like psychopathy itself, sometimes all of that kind of feeds upward into this concept of woke, which I think we, can talk pretty fruitfully about. But I don't believe it can only be presented through, left-wing causes. You can present it in terms of right-wing causes or religious causes or other causes, because it's the pathological expression of an ideology or of a belief structure that ultimately is woke. And so this term has confused people. It's angered people. I decided to try to put...
Who is it angered?
Well, this is the thing.
The woke right is who it angers. Shout out to the Duke Johns, Cat Xavier. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I consider I consider Antifa the woke side of the right, but that's just me. Well, they're firmly on the left, so they would be the woke left. How they're not on the right? So how would they be the woke side of the right if they're not on the right? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party.
I decided to try to put...
Who is it angered?
Well, this is the thing. This is what has I'll use this word. This is a heavy word for the beginning of a conversation, but this is what has dismayed me. I knew it would anger the people that it applies to, in my opinion, because who would want to be called woke right, first of all? And second of all, it limits their ability to interact because they have a label that's not a good label that sticks to them. But what I'm dismayed over is that almost I hate to use this word so glibly, but what I refer to sort of as a bookmark as elite MAGA, or the more who's who of the conservative movement seems entirely captured by this as well. And they also became upset, saw me as a turncoat and a traitor against the movement.
And so this is where we are going to have a little bit of disagreement, and the tension that I was just talking about of, no, I want woke right to be this, and I want woke right to be that, is a separate thing than are you woke right? So that's why he's talking about the two different groups. And I do agree that there are people, within MAGA who are, making a big deal of, no, that's the wrong definition, as opposed to, okay, well, what is the right definition? Or why is it the wrong definition? Or what should we be saying instead? Abe said, you don't think this is Lindsay trying to take a shot at those he disagrees with, like religious communities? Not directly. No, I think there is a lot. There's a lot of that exists, but I don't think that it is. I'm not sure what you mean about religious communities he talks to. But I mean, as we go, if you can point it out, I'm definitely open to it. And as he said, this is still taking shape of what exactly does it mean. Shout out to Ty Cobb. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Yeah, his definition is not as clear. Again, I think Dave Smith's definition, not that necessarily he came up with, but the one that he uses is a lot more clear. It's just what are the behaviors that we don't like about how the SJWs on the left behave. Now you take those, and when they manifest in creating right-wing positions, it's just still wokeness.
This as well. And they also became upset, saw me as a turncoat and a traitor against the movement.
One of the things I think, tell me what you think about this. But
so maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of it, because you're saying
traitor against the movement.
Yeah, being the fact that, as you said before, that the left is using the woke right to smear everybody. Maybe some people are angry at Lindsay for bringing this up and giving that term, its validity. But again, I will say that's a short-term thing that is necessary for us to be able to define what it actually means and separate us from that. Shout out to Amanda Price. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Thank you so much for suggesting that we cover this.
By this as well. And they also became upset, saw me as a turncoat and a traitor against the movement.
One of the things I think, tell me what you think about this, but I don't think we should name any names in this podcast, if that's okay with you.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
I wish they would.
We can talk about why that is as we progress. Okay.
Actually, you know what? I think it's better that they don't, because we can talk about the concept. Because the secondary conversation is, okay, if this is woke, then who is woke? But I think we first need to have that conversation of what is woke. And so shout out to JBP.
If that's okay with you.
That's totally fine.
Okay. We can talk about why that is as we progress. Okay, good. I mean, I wasn't going to make that a cut and dried rule, but I have my reasons. So you just referred to some comments I made on Fox News and also to some degree on Rogan, talking about, and I've actually written a fair passel on this. There's been this idea that the extremes of political belief meet, hey?
Yeah.
And so let's hash that out a little bit.
And before they go on, another thing to pay attention to is that there's a lot of slight differences between the perspectives of Jordan Peterson, there's perspectives of James Lindsay, there's perspectives of Joe Rogan, Dave Smith, Candace Owens, all the people that are in this discussion, Douglas Murray, they all have slightly different positions. So that is a very clear sign that MAGA or the right is not a cult, because we all have our own opinions and own views on this stuff. Shout out to Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. And finally, we can get a real definition on what wokeness is. Then we'll all come to the understanding that we should have been using the term meme right instead. I was with you that whole time. I was like, I like that better. I like that way better. But hey, the society does what society does. Just said I voted nay in the poll because I voted nay. I was a devoted social justice advocate when I was in my 20s and 30s. I was incredibly naive and idealistic. So you don't think being naive and idealistic happens on the right? Okay, if that's what you think. Shout out to United US. Welcome to the party. I mean, that's what language is. Subjective definitions of a thing. That's what language is. But as long as we come together and start using it in the same way, that's how these meanings are solidified. Welcome.
Political belief meet, hey?
Yeah.
And so let's hash that out a little bit. You seem to find useful or possibly accept this additional diagnostic distinction, which would be cluster B or dark tetrad.
That's right. I actually wrote about this. I don't know if you know, in 2020.
That specific
in December, yes, in 2020, I called the article something like "Psychopathy and the Origins of Totalitarianism," and I published that at the end of December of 2020. I put forth the hypothesis, which of course I got from somewhere else in significant part. I had read that infamous, quirky, but I think important book, Political Ponerology.
Yes.
Was that Lubachevsky or something like this is that name? That
the Nazi pill, the red pill.
The author. And I had read that and found it striking. And at the same time, almost, I think sometimes, a chapter here, a chapter there, I read I think one of the most important essays in English, which is Joseph Pieper's Abuse of Language, Abuse of Power. I don't
So I think it's arrogance. The right believes they're better than the rabble. And yeah, that is a very specific aspect of the woke left, is that they are arrogant and narcissistic and think that they are better than everybody else.
Which is Joseph Pieper's Abuse of Language.
Pieper? I barely even know her.
Abuse of Power. I don't know if you've heard of this. Joseph Pieper was a Catholic, and he wrote this. I don't know what else he did, honestly. I should probably look into it. But he wrote this essay, Abuse of Language, Abuse of Power, and talked about how tyrants arrange an abused version of the prevailing language to mislead people into the tyrannical program.
Semantic obfuscation. Man said, regardless what you call it, there's the opposite of the left woke on the right.
Bingo.
Exactly. So we can, twist ourselves up in trying to figure out a better term, or we can just understand that exists and not be that.
And it's in two sections, two parts. It's been 5 years since I've read it, so forgive the details. But there's, in a sense, two chapters to this long essay. And one of the two is very Catholic in its orientation, and one of them is this more general thesis. And it was extremely interesting. But of course,
thank you so very much to those of you who have already smashed the like button. You guys know how much it helps. Thank you.
In Political Ponerology, you also have the discussion of the importance of language, which of course we were seeing with the social justice woke movement as well, that they're misusing words like racism very blatantly. And so in political ponerology, you have this claim he makes that he says, well, with the psychopath, what he calls a pathocracy, what you have people who are psychologically disordered, who create a vision of the world. They need other people to play in it. And the way that they do this is by creating, he calls it a second language. So it's the same language, but the words now refer to other things.
Semantic obfuscation. Get your very own notebook. Stopping semantic obfuscation. We've got all these different designs over at TheIndianJesus.com. Get your official merch.
Of course, having read the postmodernists like Derrida, I'm picturing all
That's
of
what
those
happens
ideas.
in the Tower of Babel.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly
Remember,
right.
words lose their meaning and no one can understand.
That's right.
Nobody can understand each other.
So they reorient the discourses, and then what he says actually solves the tyrannical problem. This is the Lobachevsky's, if I'm saying his name's right, his thesis. What solves it is that a third language evolves that unmasks the second language and allows people to see it for what it is and in fact laugh at it.
So is that the term, the woke right, that third level of language? We are now able to identify that and laugh at how silly it is.
And so this is what takes it apart. So I read these two essays and I'm taken in by them. Of course, I'd been reading the postmodern literature quite a lot. I had been reading Lyotard, the postmodern condition, and he has this very confusing they're all very confusing sections throughout the whole book. This very confusing section about this thing called legitimation by parology that he accuses all knowledge-seeking enterprises, including the sciences, of being legitimation by parology.
We have to do a little look up. Parology. Parology. Okay. Is that
Parology.
the state of being paralogous? Right.
Paralogous.
Relating to genres that are descended from the same ancestral gene by gene duplication in the course of evolution, especially when present in different species which have diverged after duplication. What? Okay, well, I guess we're gonna need them to explain a little bit more because I'm not smart enough.
All knowledge-seeking enterprises, including the sciences, of being legitimation by parology. And there's this story that goes along where he's teaching legitimation by parology to his students at some point. Somebody's teaching Lyotard to their students, a philosophy professor, and says, okay, so what do you think legitimation by parology means? And everybody comes up with crazy ideas because you can barely get it from the text. And finally, the professor says it means...
Yeah, we have no idea. Shout out to Cheddar Steve! Welcome to the party over on Rumble. So I saw an Asian guy in the shower at the 24-hour fitness today. He was... we got to put that. It's not going to have the same effect. I saw an Asian guy in the shower at 24 Fitness today. He was humongous. Oh, well, wrong button. There we go. There you go. Good one. Welcome to the party.
By parology means, and everybody comes up with crazy ideas because you can barely get it from the text. And finally, the professor says it means... false legitimation through consensus. You get everybody to agree.
Yeah. False legitimation through consensus. So everybody says that this is racist, therefore it is racist. Everybody says that working out is misogynist, so therefore it is.
Says it means.
Everybody said God did it, so it is.
False legitimation through consensus. You get everybody to agree.
Okay.
And so I framed out this essay in terms of saying that what the pathocracy or the pathological ideological state, which becomes a vehicle for that pathology that serves the psychopaths at the center of it, the way that it operates is it generates a parology, a second false logic that defines the ideology, and a paramorality, a second false set of values and virtues that also defines the parameters, the social parameters and the psychosocial parameters. How do I know if I'm a good person? How do I fit in with my society? And so I write this long essay. My poor assistant, I got in trouble for this. I had him publish it on Christmas. I was so excited about it. Christmas Day, we put this out. And, very long essay explaining that.
You made your dude work on Christmas? Like, bro.
This is what I see as at the root, because I was trying to diagnose and explain to people what nobody was calling woke yet at the time, at the end of 2020, or maybe we had just begun to call woke. We were trying to diagnose and explain this social justice left phenomenon. And so I put out this essay and said, I think at the root, underneath the whole thing, there's the same psychopathologies that motivated people like Lenin and Stalin and all this. And I didn't have the psychological chops. I was aware of dark triad or tetrad terminology. I did know quite a bit about the cluster B personality disorders because I knew some people who were basically rabid feminists in the 2010s, and they were all talking about they had various
That'll teach you about narcissism and
schizoidal personality, and that one may be cluster A. I'm not totally sure. Yeah, and then they had borderline, antisocial, histrionic, narcissistic would come up again and again. I think that actually is paranoid's cluster C, right?
Yeah.
My reading, for example, of Derek Bell, one of the founders of critical race theory, is that he had very likely suffered both paranoia and schizoidia.
I'm going to say nobody called it woke before 2020. I think he's specifically talking about the right, but why do you say that? Where did you hear woke right coming around pre 2020? I certainly hadn't heard of it.
Very likely suffered both paranoia and schizoidea, which are both mentioned by Lobachevsky as well as indicative. I can't say any about any of the cluster Bs. So I think it's a little broader than just that one cluster.
So actually, let's do a little side quest here about this cluster stuff, because I generally know what he means, but when Jordan Peterson talks about cluster B characteristics, what is he talking about? What is he referring to? That's not his phone. Referring to. Let's see what we got. So dramatic, emotional, and erratic.
Bingo.
Yep. So we're talking about borderline personality disorder, narcissistic, antisocial, histrionic, or excessive emotionality, tension-seeking, dramatic behavior, often craves approval, and makes sense. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. All this stuff here.
Into the cluster Bs. So I think it's a little broader than just that one cluster appear. Conspiracy theories or paranoid thinking, for example.
Yeah. So he's specifically talking about the woke, right?
Yeah, right.
And schizoids tend to have imaginary conversations with people who aren't there on a childish, fictional level. They're pretending the world is the way that it should have been for their emotions when they were 9 years old. That's the split.
Like the transes do.
Gets in the schizoidal, and so they write these elaborate stories about how the world's supposed to be, and then they have outbursts when the world doesn't match that. And Derek Bell was famous for writing these missives where he would present them as evidence of racism, say at Harvard, where he had an imaginary conversation with a dean, and then would write the whole imaginary conversation down. And I'm thinking, this is so disordered, not just disordered thinking, but this is psychologically disordered, that you would then present this hypothetical conversation as evidence. But at any rate,
so
for a long time, I've thought that's there.
Okay, so let's lay down some theses and tell me what you think of them. So
all right, let's see what the theses are. Shout out to CT223. Welcome to the party. Talking about the woke right with James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson.
Some theses
that does come up.
Tell me what you think of them. So the first is that about 4 to 5% of the population, maybe more, has dark tetrad cluster B traits to some significant degree. Okay, and so
just 3%? Just 3%? That's it?
That was histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, and psychopathic, right? That's the cluster B cluster. Whether those are psychopathologies, like illnesses, that's a matter of dispute. There are certainly forms of severe social misbehavior.
Somebody just said something and I heard that too, but it already went out of my mind. What was said that sounds like that? That's so weird how quickly I heard what you heard. I thought of it. I don't even know if it was something I said or he said. And then by the time this popped up, I forgot what I was talking about or what I was referring to.
There are certainly forms of severe social misbehavior.
Fecal matter.
Manipulative social misbehavior.
Yes.
And people who fall into those categories will use cries of victimization to parasitize.
Yes.
Right. So they're parasitizing on empathy. That's one hallmark. Right. They have disordered interpersonal relationships, often very intense. They're predatory, particularly the antisocial types. That's more straight, repetitive criminals. Very stable pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
So let's say 4 to 5%.
Ah, that's what it was. That's what it was. I heard it too. And by the time this comment came up, I completely forgot about it. There you go. He said, theses. Let's lay down some theses. TH. Theses.
Repetitive criminals, very stable pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
So let's say 4 to 5%. It's probably increased because of the net. That would be my guess.
The net. Okay, boomers.
Yeah.
It's not well regulated on the net because
Right.
most of our evolved mechanisms for dealing with such people don't work. Especially, we could talk about anonymity because I can understand
Yeah, of
why
course.
people defend it. But by the same token,
Talking about them Twitter fingers. Oh, you got all the strength in the world behind a keyboard, but you won't show your face online. You won't, none of that stuff. It's bullshit.
it allows you to escape from your well-deserved reputation.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's
Years ago, by the way, you said that one of the features, you got in trouble for this, and you were right, of course, but you said one of the features of our moment was that there's male aggression and female aggression that express themselves differently.
Yeah.
And male aggression, I don't know if you use this terminology, but I think it's something to this effect, doesn't upload very well.
Yeah.
You can't punch somebody in the nose through the screen.
Yeah.
But female aggression, the social aggression, uploads very well. But what
Perfectly.
it turns out is this cluster B or dark tetrad manipulation uploads almost even better.
Yes. Yes.
You can have 50 accounts. You can, switch from one to the other. You can create entire false environments that your targets have to engage in.
It's particularly true because it's literally cost-free.
Yeah.
Right. So you might imagine that any storehouse of value is likely to be parasitized to the degree that you can invade it for no cost.
Yeah.
The anonymity is the worst aspects of the internet behavior, he says from an anonymous account.
It's totally
Right.
right.
Okay. So this is what I think happened to the universities, right? Is that they're whale carcasses
Mhm.
and they've been invaded by parasites. And the whale carcass idea is a very old one. It's a huge storehouse of value, right? So
Yeah.
since World War II, the West was on a pretty productive trajectory, and we generated massive storehouses of value in many, many places. Those would be financial storehouses, but reputational storehouses that's even more germane. Like Harvard has both. It did have both,
It did
right?
have both.
$53 billion plus a stellar reputation.
Yeah, the best brand in America,
Exactly. And
in the world.
Semantic obfuscation, rationalization, or fair observation.
Next to Disney,
Yeah, right.
right? Which is another storehouse of value
That's
that's been severely parasitized. Okay, so now, so that's two things. There's 5% of the population. Oh yes, the dark tetrad types are narcissistic, Machiavellian.
Yeah.
So they use language only as a means to manipulate towards instrumental ends. There's no
Semantic obfuscation.
communicative intent.
Right.
It's all essentially status gaming. They're
Do I not talk about this all the goddamn time, guys?
psychopathic,
Mhm.
and that means they're predatory parasites.
Mhm.
And then they had to top it all off with sadism. And I think that's what changed the dark triad to the dark
That
tetrad. I
makes
think the reason for that is that if you have a dark triad orientation towards the world and the world turns against you, it makes you so angry because you're rejected and unsuccessful that expresses itself in positive delight in the unnecessary suffering of others. Right. So this is dark material.
So this is exactly what we're talking about on both sides. This isn't a right or left. We're talking about the two parallel cases of the give send goes for Carmelo Anthony and for that Shiloh girl, where the people who are donating to those accounts are not thinking, oh no, the person is innocent and nothing happened and we need to help them. What they are donating to is, ha, you got one on them. Good job. I'm too much of a bitch to do it, so I'll give you money to do it for me. That's what we're seeing. Shout out to Behave. Welcome to the party. There is not pictures of Morty eating a Whopper. We have not established that goal, but like I said, guys, I am down to do it. So you put down the offer and we could take a trip. I am with it. Welcome to the party. Shout out to the prince.
Now, in the unnecessary suffering of others, right? So this is dark material.
Yeah.
Now, there's no reason to assume that the cluster B dark tetrad types would do anything other than gravitate towards storehouses of value. First of all, the parasite problem is a very deep problem biologically, right? It's so deep that some people think sex evolved to solve it. To mix the genes, it's harder for parasites to move down the generations, right? So that's actually one of the canonical theories for the evolution.
Guys, we got 13 people here and only 3 likes. Let's get 5. Let's get 5 likes on this bitch.
Evolution of sex itself. Why would you take a 50% hit in terms of genetic transmission when you could just clone yourself? Well, the parasites can breed, multiply faster than you can. And so they have the upper edge in a lengthy battle. So you mix up the genes and anyways, so the parasite problem is a very old problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to add one more thing to that.
Yeah.
So imagine that a system of knowledge is a way of representing the world and navigating in it. Okay, so that would be like a scientific theory or an engineering.
Yeah, right. I mean, hey, like or dislike, either way, that'll help out. But thank you very, very much, guys. Shout out to Bambi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. He always is. He always is. Look at him. Look at him. CD said Tucker Carlson just dropped an episode with Dave Smith again, talking about the Douglas Murray interview and the elitist journalism. Could be good for a future stream. Yeah, I saw that streaming as I was setting this up, and I was like, oh, baby. Oh, baby. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
World and navigating in it. Okay, so that would be like a scientific theory or an engineering theory, right? And so you might be able to assess that theory on the grounds of objective fact, say. Okay, but then imagine that there's a different form of language game, and that is that you orient yourself with you bring a number of people together, and you lay out some game rules. They could be religious axioms. In fact, I think religious axioms are game rules. I think that's the right way to think about it. But it could be political, right? So communism, a pseudo-religion, has game rules, axioms that you have to accept. And so does conservatism. These are games that can integrate a large number of people. Okay, so that's a slightly different function, right? Because now it's like if you and I decide to play basketball, we're going to produce a hierarchy within that set of rules, right? Whatever set of rules you lay out, people are going to be differentially able at implementing.
I am obviously going to be the center at 5'4".
That's right.
Right. Any set of rules.
That's right.
Right. So, for example, if you were in a gym and you had school children roll, and you had a competition, you'd get a
roll on Molly
hierarchy of rolling speed,
and
then the top rollers would be the high status people within that game. So you can organize systems of knowledge so that they're ground rules for a game, and then you produce a hierarchy. Now, hierarchical position has value.
Yeah.
So the higher you are in the social hierarchy, the more positive emotion you feel, and the less negative emotion, and the less likely you are to perish.
Yeah.
Which is precisely why that hierarchy needs to be meritocratic.
Partly because you have social capital and social support. So people will compete for status within the confines of any given hierarchical game. That's a whole different function than representation of the world. Now, maybe you'd hope that your game represents the world too, which I suppose is that would be something like competition in a scientific lab, right? Because
something like that.
Something like that. Or competition within a game that's actually productive and self-sustaining.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And the axioms of Western culture seem to be a game like that.
They do.
Right. Now, okay, having established that, you can game it.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so that seems to be, okay, so we agree on, so far, there's nothing in that you think is objectionable?
No, nothing. No, that's right. I think that's exactly right. And it's a good way to look at it. And I think it opens a door to how this becomes woke in a particular way if we get very, very general. Because if you actually want to know the controversy about woke right, what's happened, Eric Weinstein.
And let's get into that in a second. We got Morty joining the party here, but of course, you guys, if you would do me the pleasure. If you guys are enjoying the show, the party rages on 24/7 over in our Discord. The link is pinned to the top of the chat and is absolutely free to join 24/7. We're in there hanging out, having a great time. And guys, it is absolutely free. However, if you are a member of this channel here on YouTube, you can scroll right below that video and hit that join button. Starts at $2.99. There's a few different tiers, but $2.99 will get you in. It gets you members only live streams here on YouTube, all that other good stuff. But it opens up the full Discord server. So we've got the free chat that is open to anyone. Anybody can join and talk. But as you can see, that is just one of our channels. There's a bunch of different channels here, including our disciple chat for members only, our word of the day watch party, where we're talking about all this stuff. And of course, we have the voice channel here. where we are hanging out at this moment. Shout out to everybody in the Discord server. Say hello and tell them to come and join.
Hello, come and join.
There you go, guys. Simple as that. See you there. And of course, remember, guys, that if you join tonight, then you automatically get a free pass to the full server. So we have an after party when we are done here, and that is for channel members only. But if you join the free Discord with the link at the top of the chat, then you get to come to the after party. It's free, guys. Come on through.
We get very, very general, because if you actually want to know the controversy about woke right, what's happened, Eric Weinstein told me this. I know we're not going to name names, but it's positive.
Yeah, okay.
He told me that what he realized, and of course he's a mathematician as well. So and I'm a mathematician. Yeah. So he said he told me this at ARC. Actually, we were having a conversation, and he said, when I realized what you've done is generalize the concept of woke, and then applied it in a different domain, it clicked.
Bingo. Exactly what you've done. They keep going from talking really fast and talking really slow. But the concept of, you take the concept of woke and apply it in a different domain. You take the concept of woke and you apply it in a different domain, and it fits perfectly. It fits perfectly.
Realize what you've done is generalize the concept of woke and then applied it in a different domain. It clicked. So it's no longer, just left-wing, totalitarian behavior. It's now this mode of totalitarian behavior that I can apply.
It's transferable.
Correct.
Yes.
And so with the hierarchy, well, not just the hierarchy, everything you just described, but you have these reservoirs of value in hierarchies built off of these games.
Yeah.
So there's value there. And the parasite is drawn to the reservoir of value.
Wherever it is.
And the idea is that you want to be high status, but they have natural limitations because they're not
competent.
They're not competent. Yeah, they're outside of the range of what brings you to the top of these
They tend to be very low in conscientiousness.
They tend to be. That's right. Yep. And so, what would you do?
The woke are not the most self-aware, right or left. Ty said, I really liked JBP's Bible series because I am not a fan of the religious. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Gomtech agrees. Like his earlier Bible lectures, they hit the perfect balance of relatable and intriguing. Yeah, this was before he felt like his vocabulary had to be 10 times longer than his message.
They tend to be very low in conscientiousness.
They tend to be. That's right. And so, what would you do? What you would do is there's a word for what you would try to create as the parasite who's now latched on. The thing you would try to, there's different, if you want to talk about it in politics, there's one word, and if you want to talk about it in religion or more generally, there's another. The general word or the religious word is cult. You'll create a cult where you've taken a variation on those rules to where there's a new status game that's rigged so you're always on top of it.
So what Abe was saying before, that, the left is using this to call MAGA the woke right. Like, okay, yeah, the semantic games coming from the woke are not going to stop. But it's about identifying that so that we can more clearly, we can all agree that this is woke and this is not woke. And so those of us who are not woke can be like, fuck that.
On those rules to where there's a new status game that's rigged so you're always on top of it.
Yep.
And what you're going to do is pervert the underlying rules. We call it an ideology or a cult doctrine. The word in politics would be splinter. A splinter movement within a broader movement. So MAGA is a political movement, and you can imagine a splinter off of it, where the Democratic Party had a political movement, and the Justice Democrats came along 10 years ago and made a splinter off of it that created the Squad. A lot of people know that history, at least, so it should be, germane. So
yeah, and it's not exactly the same, but the concept of how you have Democrats and you have liberals and then you have leftists and socialists, it's not all the same thing just because they all voted for Kamala Harris, and the same thing applies on the right. Just because we all voted for Trump doesn't mean we all believe the same things.
Squad. A lot of people know that history, at least, so it should be, germane. So the generation of a localized cult is sort of this hypothesis, and the ideology grows out of the desire for the people at the top of that, who are parasitizing the hierarchy to create their kind of internal nested hierarchy.
That's because he's the woke right.
Where they're on top of the whole thing. And the way they do that is by saying the big system is gamed. The big system is rigged. The big system is fake. And we have a secret truth about how things really work. And now you enter into the Gnostic kind of, even metaphysical space. The ancient Gnostic religions, whether against Judaism or Christianity, all held out that Yahweh, the character, the creator God of Genesis, was in fact a demon who had tricked everything. He wasn't the actual highest unknowable God. He was this low level, functionary god who said, I'm going to rule over all this stuff. I'm going to imprison them in this, wonderful garden. And then, whoops, they disobeyed me and almost realized the game by eating from the forbidden tree. So now we're going to throw them out into a real prison. And they've been, in the Heideggerian sense, they've been flung, their being has been flung into a world they didn't choose, in which they suffer. And you get the whole Gnostic architecture. But the way that Gnosticism attracts is by saying, and that I can make this kind of literal to things that are happening in our world if we have to, is that the authorities in the existing game know so much, but they don't want you to know everything. They don't want you to know more because you might surpass them.
It's always a power game. It's always a power game. Well, I'm saying that wokeness was the disease. Woke right is the overactive immune system that is starting to become cancerous. Well, fucking said, sir. If wokeness is a disease, so wokeness is the disease, the woke right is the overactive immune system that is starting to become cancerous. Beautifully said. That is exactly right.
But they don't want you to know everything. They don't want you to know more because you might surpass them. They're trying to keep you down. But if you come with me in my cult, I'll tell you the real secrets.
That's an appeal to paranoia too.
Sure.
And that's going to be more effective under conditions of extreme uncertainty.
Sure.
Okay, so let's concretize this a little bit.
Sure.
I'd like to talk about...
Is that a word? Concretize?
We can talk about Douglas and Joe.
Sure.
I think...
I thought we weren't naming names.
Let's amend our rule. We're not going to point any fingers at woke right people.
Okay.
But I'd like to talk about the current situation.
Well, I'd call Douglas Murray woke, right? But that's precisely why I think it's good that Jordan Peterson's like, let's stay away from that, because that changes the conversation from what is woke right to who is woke right. Nick said, exactly. I don't think of being conservative as being against change, but being against change for no good reason or worse. It's about keeping the good around while allowing room for change. Agreed. Absolutely.
Point any fingers at woke right people.
Okay.
But I'd like to talk about the current situation.
Yeah, the situation and the ideas I think are important.
Well, Douglas is...
Guys, let me get 2 more likes. Come on. I hate begging for likes. Please, 2 more.
Point with regard to Joe was that it's troublesome for those with a conservative bent to throw away the idea of institutional legitimacy.
Yeah.
And that's a fair comment, standalone comment. Joe's rebuttal to that, insofar as he had a rebuttal, because I thought the conversation was actually pretty civil given how difficult it was that the institutions have been so cataclysmically faulty in the last 10 years that
how dare you expect me to a priori accept what they have to say?
The only possible antidote to their falseness is really unrestrained investigation. And Joe's been the master of unrestrained investigation, obviously, because he's allowed his interest to take him wherever it goes, which allied with a certain amount of conscience is a pretty good orienting function as far as I'm concerned. And I'm at a loss to some degree how to reconcile those viewpoints.
It's not the Duma. I disagree. Wokeness absolutely is a Duma.
It's because I think it is a cataclysm that the institutions have become unreliable. But let's walk through them a little bit. I think the universities are gone.
Me too.
I think that Harvard is having this war with Trump, and that Trump is 100% right.
Yep, me too.
The president of Harvard, in my understanding, said to the Trump administration that it was unfair to punish the researchers by withholding their research funds. But I look at that and I think those researchers have been filling out DEI statements for 10 years.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, they lost all their credibility. They're not independent researchers at all.
Oh, that's right.
And they could say and have said that they were just following the rules. It's like,
like the Nazis.
That's not a very good excuse if you're a seeker after knowledge, right? If the rules have become pathological, you have an obligation to cease following them. Harvard took its DEI head, I think it was Harvard, and kept the person and changed the name. Well, that's all.
Semantic obfuscation.
All the universities are going to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Why wouldn't they?
And that's just fundamentally
Because
deceitful.
they can get away with
More
it.
deceitful even.
Yeah.
Right. It's another form of mimicry. And I guess that's another thing we could point out about the psychopathic 5% is that they're masters of camouflage.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
what a
Hey, I'm off my game with the buttons today. Hey, as someone who is DEI certified, you're right.
psychopath does is mimic competence.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
And usually they can't get away with it because not for long, because they don't create, they destroy. And eventually that evidence accrues, and then they have to leave and find another host, so to speak.
Right.
Now online, that's a snap, right? Because
Yeah.
you can just switch.
Exactly.
You can just switch
What?
your identity, and
That's right.
and you've solved the problem, or you can multiply it beyond. And then there's a
Oh, okay. I think what he's saying is that you can take advantage of the landscape and be essentially an edgelord without any consequences, because if you go too far, then you just pick another screen name. I think that's what he's saying.
just switch your identity, and
That's right.
and you've solved the problem, or you can multiply it beyond. And then there's a bot problem
There's
online
a
too.
tremendous bot problem.
Yeah. We
And that's not even to talk about the robots.
tracked some of that. And for some of these discussions about the woke right, 30% of the comments are bots.
Yeah, right.
So that means
Put a one in the chat if you have not heard of the dead internet theory.
we're automating the psychopathy. Like I've thought for a long time, and I do think this may be the case, that virtualization enables psychopathy.
Virtualization enables psychopathy. Okay, that's a strong statement.
That's the case.
We're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
We're in big trouble.
Well, at least 50% of internet traffic is criminal, right? It's
Holy
like
cow, yeah.
it's 30% pornography, which
Okay, well, that's very clearly not illegal, but, fine.
criminal, right? It's
Holy
like
cow, yeah.
it's 30% pornography, which is close enough to criminal. So I think distinguishing them is not useful. And then
Yeah, because, what do words mean, right? We were just talking about for 10 straight minutes. For 10 straight minutes about obfuscating language, and now we're going to take a thing that's legal and just call it legal because it helps our case. Like, what are you doing? So the dead internet theory is basically that 90% of the activity that you see online is fake and from bots and stuff. So 10% of what you actually see is actually real people, but everything else is just, the bullshit to keep it all going. Guamtek said, I agree with JBP on anonymity on the internet, but we should definitely have a choice in the matter. Maybe some kind of social bonus for posting publicly under your real name. That I would appreciate. I like that, because I do think I completely agree that, as Hondo was saying, no, what the hell is your name now? As United was saying earlier, that is some of the darkest parts of the internet, is because it's not tied to your identity. Yet there is a real privacy question about, being private and anonymous.
close enough to criminal. So I think distinguishing them is not useful. And then like old people are just scammed nonstop.
Nonstop.
Right. And there's no policing, and there can't be, because
Yeah, but it's just frustrating. Like directly after you're saying, oh, these words are so important and it's not illegal, but we're going to call it legal because it helps us. Just a little bit of pot calling kettle black.
and there's no policing, and there can't be, because you can hide so effectively.
Right.
So, and then what it seems to happen is that the unrestrained psychopathy spills over into the public domain, and everyone is mad. Like
Yeah, Guanchek, I think you're right that there's already a level of this. There's already a level of this, and I've had people make fun of me for paying for Twitter Blue when like it's not just because I want to be special. Like this is a thing that I'm actually doing for a job. But I decided to do that because of the fact that my logo is my profile picture. And so having the check mark then kind of goes against the aspect of, oh, I'm just some nobody. Now that I'm not necessarily presenting myself as, just myself. I'm presenting myself as this quasi character of the Indian Jesus. But, you could see my face on the internet, and that level of put your money where your mouth is. I like it. Hey, shout out to Tijuana Border Jumper. Said, feed my dog. All right, here, you feed your dog. I'm gonna feed my dog. Thank you. So very, very much, of course. So that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so very, very much, guys. Don't forget about our swole goal. We either 15 super chats of any amount or $50 will get us there. And I am puny, guys. I need your help. Thank you so very, very much, sir. And welcome to the party.
Spills over into the public domain and everyone is mad, like in both senses, angry and insane because of it. Let's return just for a moment to the hierarchy idea. So you pointed out one interesting mechanism of attaining status, which is to twist the rules slightly, create a new game, and dominate that as its originator.
Right.
So that's a transformation of a process that's actually creative and adaptive, right? Because if I wanted to make a variation of a business, I could do that. And then if I served my customers well and so forth, I could climb to the top of that new business niche and succeed. This is the parasitical equivalent to that.
Yeah.
Right. It's to what? To generate a version that does nothing but attract unwarranted attention. That would be the narcissistic spin. And to use it.
Like throwing out, the Jews, because, it's going to get attention, or talking about Hitler and how cool he is and all that shit. It's just weak, like fourth grade type shit that you're just trying to be an edgelord. And it said, P-Hub content is like 30% of the internet. That's what I heard in a video the other day. Factual? I'm not sure. 30%? I could believe that. There's not, what do I do on the internet? Aside from the show, I watch Netflix, I watch YouTube, I answer emails, all the stuff with making thumbnails and all that stuff. That has to do with this. And the other. So, I wouldn't be surprised.
That does nothing but attract unwarranted attention. That would be the narcissistic spin. And to use any means whatsoever to attract that attention.
While directing blame to the parent structure. I think that's very important. So, for example, with Karl Marx, he phrased his vision of communism wasn't the crude communism that was experimented with by Gracchus Babeuf in the French Revolution. It was a transcendent communism. And I use that word because he doesn't call it transcendent communism. He calls it communism. But what he says, his exact wording for it is it's communism as the positive transcendence of private property as human self-estrangement, and thus a complete return of man to his true nature as a human or social being.
Right.
I am a professional dog trainer. You think I don't walk my dog? I can't wait until the weather gets warm enough, because I'm a little bitch with the cold. So as soon as the weather gets warm enough, he gets a full walk around the whole development every afternoon, including his morning walk, and depending on what's going on, his night walk as well. And at his age and his size, that's a lot. He loves it.
Return of man to his true nature as a human or social being.
Right.
Ty Cobb said, my entire existence is mostly parasocial. It's a hobby. I have nothing better to do with my time. Well, it is extremely important to people like me that you are understanding that is the nature of the relationship, because it gets scary when even at, this tiny, tiny, tiny channel, there's people who don't seem to fully get that, like, I don't know you. You're somebody who puts words on a screen that I see, but I don't know your face. I don't know your name. I don't know what you like. I don't know what time. Like, I don't know any of this stuff about you. You know a lot about me because I sit here and jibber jabber about my whole life. But very good that you notice that, or acknowledge that rather. Gomez said, just thinking out loud here, but I wonder if the blue check theory, patent pending, would help with online sales. What do you mean? What do you mean? Man said, be happy you are not at a place where I put a picture in the Discord earlier. I'm not at I want to see what you look like. We got a whole selfies channel for the channel members. Show us what you look like. Yeah, and that was the other thing. I forget who was asking yesterday, but about Morty liking the heat. It'll be 90 degrees outside, and we'll go on our walk around the whole thing, and then I'll walk in the door, and he'll just plop down on the concrete, the porch, right in the right out front. 90 degrees, and he's just chilling, and he's all black, so the heat is just, but he loves it, just like his daddy. Nick said, no way. It's the same 3 videos over and over again. Oh, wait. That's memory from the VCR days. Oh, man. So, go on, since nobody trusts salespeople online or on the phone. Yes. What are we talking about? You guys, what are we doing here? Spell check and full ideas, please. I don't know what you're saying. Just have several cyber stalking parasites for years. Those are some whole weirdos. Bingo. Yeah, not looking forward to getting more of those.
Of man to his true nature as a human or social being.
Right.
We'll be right back, but first, here's a sneak peek at the member-exclusive portion of this episode.
What the hell is going on?
I mean, the left is doing what the left does. The issue is never the issue. They're trying to tear apart society, gain advantage, the whole thing. Everything they did with critical race theory, queer theory, you name it, they're doing it now with this new issue. They're saying Israel is bad and the Jews are a problem. That doesn't play well with mainstream America. So very plausible that this is coming from foreign adversaries. China's behind it, let's say. Qatar's behind it.
All right, sign up as a member if you care about all of that.
So that's a Nietzschean revaluation of all values.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really much deeper than people think. It's redistributing property. It's to transcend property. And so how does this turn into what I said is that the game, which at that point he's looking at, it doesn't matter if it's capitalism or feudalism or even slavery, it's the private property game that he believes is the course of history. He says, well, everything is actually that thing's fault. And people who play that game are the people who are the problem. And that's how he recruits. He finds people who are losing within that game, who are being injured by that game, and says, you know what? It's not you. It's the whole bloody game. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. Amanda said, sorry, I dropped the ball on the last sentence. That is all right. She said, be glad you don't live where I am. We got snow today. I put a picture in Discord earlier. Where is it? I can share that if you like, but we don't have to. Of course, the Discord is completely private, so you gotta be in there to know what is good. But yeah, I saw that, and I am not jealous. It was a nice 75 today. Ooh, love it.
What? It's not you. It's the whole bloody game. Come over here. We've got a different game. But the trick is, who's at the top of that game?
This was Amanda's picture from early. Oh, paste. Nope, that's not how that works. Come on. Copy link. Paste link. There we go. God damn. In May. Nope. If this happened, like, it's already bad enough that I live in Jersey, and you'll see this sometimes through April. But once May comes around, if there's any snow, I gotta leave. All right, let's dive back in here.
Come over here. We've got a different game. But the trick is, who's at the top of that game? With Karl Marx, it was Karl Marx. It wasn't the people ever. If you read it, so what's Communist Manifesto? We'll just break it down. Chapter 1, Communist Manifesto is titled Bourgeois and Proletarians. Bourgeoisie and proletarians. So he describes the relationship between the people who are playing that game, the bourgeoisie, and then the proletarians, who are the workers at the bottom who are making that game possible. And he says, all you guys down at the bottom are getting exploited. You're being alienated from who you really are. You're alienated from your product. Everything's terrible for you, and it's exploitation. So the winners of that game can cheat you. That's the relationship that he puts out. Chapter 2 is communists and proletarians. And he says, so it starts out brilliantly. He says, so what's the relationship between the communists and the proletarians, or the workers' movements? He says, we don't disagree with any of the workers' movements.
He's cooking now. He's cooking. Trying to find that perfect speed.
We actually are the highest expression of them. So we take their vision and put theory behind it and take it to a higher level of understanding. And we're going to bring all you guys with. And so naturally, what's going to happen? So let's say he agitates the proletarians to revolt. He's just said that the shepherds are going to be the Communist Party. And then who's going to run the Communist Party? Karl Marx.
Yes.
So it's a whole thing is a giant scam to blame the existing system, to agitate a large group of people who aren't winning within that system, to get them to
elevate
switch
itself
games
to the highest.
with him at the very peak.
Okay, so to me, I know that we've talked a little bit about religious matters, but I'm going to delve into that for a second.
Actually, before we go, put a bookmark.
Yes.
And I number one, because I do want to get to the heart of, what they're talking about with the woke right. And, because it's me and I don't necessarily want to drag us into religious territory just for me to be like, meh, 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 meh. So I am going to skip a little bit of that, but for good reason.
Because Hitler did the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Mussolini did the exact same thing. Hitler is much more clear. He says, we had this German race. And back in history, he writes this fictional mythological history of the Germans. Some of it, if you read or see it, is just kind of humorously, transparently false about how great they were in antiquity and all of this. So we've got these Germans and they've got all this, he's got this whole occult, theosophical Aryan stuff that he's brought in from Helena Blavatsky and read The Secret Doctrine and all this weird occultism he's attached to race. And in Mein Kampf, second volume, chapter 1, he talks about, well, the Nazis have a new world concept, Weltanschauung. And that world concept will be the racial world concept. And then he lays out how the
sounds woke
state exists to preserve the race. That's the point, because when you have the race, you have the people who will generate high culture. When you have the people who generate high culture, then you can advance society to its highest level of expression and man's highest level of expression. Very progressive ideology. But what he's saying is, we had this somewhere in this mythical, distant, foggy past, and we can recover it. How? By taking every step that we can to figure out the race and purify the race. And guess what? Everybody who's with me who wants Germany to be made great again after World War I and the ravages of the Treaty of Versailles as they saw it, and the challenges that came with the post or the interwar period as we see it now. All you Germans who are mad at Europe and mad at the French and you're having a bad time, guess what? There's a mythic Germany that you've lost and we can get it back.
So what you're saying is that Hitler was the best woke right person in terms of representing wokeness and being well, I guess that was on the left, so that whole thing didn't matter. It didn't even matter. But the woke right and Hitler are the same shit.
French and you're having a bad time, guess what? There's a mythic Germany that you've lost and we can get it back. Hey, come on, let's go.
Hey, and the Allies for that matter. I said, I myself am a whole weirdo in my head. I requested a psychiatric evaluation because I thought I was a class 2 psychopath, not just Asperger. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
And here's the ideology. It's our racial world concept. And here's how it's going to be organized, not with this, vanguard Bolshevik model over there that the communists use, but we're going to use what I call the Führer principle. Not me. Hitler called the Führer principle. The leader principle. Of course, who's the Führer? Hitler. So he's on top. And it's this absolutely rigid top.
The woke right just want to be Hitler. Oh.
Who's the Führer? Hitler. So he's on top. And it's this absolutely rigid top-down pyramid of authority, which is a completely different expression.
That's what a Tower of Babel is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, with the wrong thing at the top.
But it's the same
And so going back to the notion of the left calling all of MAGA the woke right, you can see how that is not a direct fit, but you could twist it that way. And that's what they do. That's why, again, we need to make sure that no. What we're calling woke, left or right, is A, B, C, and D. So somebody can be MAGA and be woke, but they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. And we have to make that very clear.
Expression.
That's what a Tower of Babel is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, with the wrong thing at the top.
But it's the same program. The game that it's not the game that we're all playing. It's the game that we've been forced into by this rotten circumstance, has dispossessed us from who we should be. We're heritage Germans, for example, and we should have the benefits of our mastery of race. But the problem is, in his sight,
it's very attractive to anyone who has nothing to offer but racial identity.
That's right. That's right. And two things: racial identity and obedience. Maybe a modicum of cruelty as well.
Definitely an aspect of cruelty.
Yeah, well, that comes along for the ride.
It comes along for the ride eventually.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the young Germans were actually inspired because they thought it was going to be good for the worker. They were inspired by the socialism part of National Socialism and that it was going to be good for Germany. And they loved their country and they wanted to see it great. And so they were swept up, the Hitler Youth were swept up to get into this. But it's the same program. There's a game. We used to be the masters of the game, but now we've been dispossessed from the game. They threw us from top to bottom. That was an intolerable experience. By the way, this is all the story of Lucifer. He's been cast to the bottom.
Yes.
And so what we're going to do now is we're going to grab our rightful inheritance and we're going to build the structure that returns us to it. P.S. The organizational structure is the Furrer principle, so I'm at the top.
Okay, so
yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And again, I think this goes back to what Abe was talking about with the left using this as a way to smear MAGA. And that, like, the term woke right is already out there. So if your goal is to get rid of the term, ain't gonna happen. The only path forward to all of MAGA not being considered the woke right is to differentiate those who actually are woke on the right, whether they are part of MAGA, whether they are neocons, whether they are rhinos, whatever. The point here is that none of those things are mutually exclusive. You can be woke and you can be left. You can be woke and you can be a leftist. You can be woke and you can be MAGA and you can be woke and you can be a never Trumper who voted for Ron Paul or whatever. Wokeness is not a position. It is a mentality. So let's skip forward here a little bit and dive right back in.
amazing how that's played out
In psychopathology, that's splitting,
well,
by the way.
And sociologically, I mean, one of the things I've noticed about my home country.
Before we dive back in, Ty said, Lil Adolf almost drowned when he was 9 in an icy lake. Close. So close. Next, said, I'd rather have some kind of American identity because it would be, I'd have better people than one based on race.
Bingo.
That's what I've been saying for years. The American identity. Taking a lot of values that you will find in Christianity and a lot of other religions, but without tying them, hamstringing them to truth claims that aren't really relevant to the political aspect. And so if you want our politics to be good, then you have to allow good politics to come up. And if that is not going to be possible, as long as it's tied to religion, then you can keep digging a hole to China. But I don't know what to tell you. It ain't gonna work. Man said, always say, what if Hitler got into art school? We might have revered him. We might have revered. I mean, some of the woke right already do, but normal people might have revered him. A man rescued him, but that guy has serious regrets. Oh, I would hate to be that guy. Oh man, and yep, like me and Nick against the world, right? Me and Nick against the world.
Well,
by the way.
And sociologically, I mean, one of the things I've noticed about my home country, it's really stark in Canada. If conservatives protest, they're flattened.
Yeah.
Left protest, there's no holds barred. No matter how pathological it becomes, the left-wing protesters are always the heroic victims. The trucker convoy was a great example of that, right?
That was such an insane thing that like we should be talking about that more. I think the fact that it was Canada is a big reason why it's not front and center as much. But yeah, like that whole thing was insane.
Because, you know, it was a disruptive demonstration, although remarkably peaceful. And the legal repercussions are still unrolling. And I think maybe it's, tell me what you think
You call this art? You know.
about this. I think it's because it might be partly the spread of the ideas of Marcuse through the culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also think that people are genuinely people. There's
People gonna people.
something to genuinely fear when actual conservatives protest, because they don't do it until they're pushed to the wall.
That may be,
Good point.
but I think
Well,
it's,
is it also an indication that something
But so, okay, a fair point that it's, you know, want to be careful when conservatives protest because it takes them a lot to do that. True, but we only if we're talking about, you know, in the real world. So if we're talking about protesting an idea on Twitter, then no, the right is very happy to do that. Right, left, center, up, and down.
very fundamental has gone sideways? Because conservatives
true.
aren't the protesting type.
no, but I think that the trucker protest tells us something different, because the target, these people, this is one of the most genuinely peaceful,
Woke.
pro
Not you, him.
liberty, free. It was the freedom convoy, and they meant it, and they policed their own borders, and they kept the radicals out on the right. So what happened was they showed up, the left showed up to protest the normal people. I'm not going to say the middle, the normal people, everyday freedom-loving Canadians. And the excuse was there's a far right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened is I call this ideological flattening or dialectical flattening, but it's
I like the ideological flattening where wherever you are, because there's someone way. Oh, and let's go full screen here. So let's say this is the center and you're here, right? It doesn't matter. You're over here. So because people exist over here, you feel okay attacking people over here. And for that, maybe people right in the center. And you're saying, well, these people are bad. Therefore, the people that are over here must be in the same group. Not how it works. It's called a spectrum. Don't you guys love to talk about spectrums? It's a spectrum. He wasn't well. I was gonna say, if it was just for, if he was a historian, then maybe it gets a pass. But just to be like, yeah, Hitler's cool, bro. Like, that's so cringe. That's so cringe. Exactly. If you're idolizing Hitler, you went wrong somewhere. Man said, glad he's my ex. I feel that.
What happened is I call this ideological flattening or dialectical flattening, but it's psychologically it's splitting. The person that's occupying the leftist deranged position has flattened liberals and conservatives into a single monster.
Yeah.
Not so they can fight the conservatives, so they can fight the liberals. And that's happening on the other side.
And so a good example of that would be like Hassan, Jenk's nephew Hassan. So because he's super, super far left, that when he is on a podcast with Ethan Klein, who's like, yeah, Israel is committing a genocide and they're terrible, but I mean, like, the babies that are there, and he's like, nope, the babies are sellers too. The whole campaign against Ethan then becomes, because people are on the far right that have nothing to do with Ethan Klein, we can treat Ethan Klein like he is part of the far right because he doesn't agree with us. It all comes back to conformity and power. Agree with me.
Yeah.
Not so they can fight the conservatives, so they can fight the liberals. And that's happening on the other side. Conservatives will look over and say, whoa, there's the far left. And all the classical liberals are actually in their camp. And they've flattened them. It's the same splitting behavior.
Yeah. So if I want to say, hey, I personally don't see a big reason why we would need to get rid of gay marriage. Like, I don't necessarily think that, it's something that should be celebrated by religious people. And I'm even okay with, taking away the title of marriage and leaving that as a religious thing. That will get me called liberal and gay and for that matter, woke. Semantic, obfuscation, and projection. Sad. CT. So a lot of people consider the political spectrum to be a straight line, when really I think it was more a circle. If you go too far left, you start coming back around to the right. Yeah, most people will say the political horseshoe. You have like political horseshoe. Yeah, and then we're talking about this where most people think it is this way, but what do we got here? Open new tab. What? Open image in new tab. There we go. So what is this telling us? So we've got so this is the left and this is the right. Exactly what CT is just talking about. You got communism and socialism on the far left. And you got, nationalism and this is clearly made by a leftist or a left-wing person, but the Christian nationalism and stuff like that is all down here. And you can see that these people on the far right and the far left are a lot closer than people who are over here. Faux show.
Far left. And all the classical liberals are actually in their camp. And they've flattened them. It's the same splitting behavior. And again, so this is, again, an emphasis of this woke, or an exhibition of this woke right phenomenon of same energy, different direction, opposite directions in this case. And the idea is that they are attacking the middle through the proxy of the far opposite side. So I brought up Marcuse because he's also famous for Eros and civilization and the sexual liberation. And we were talking about the pride and the queer theory.
Well, those left-wing movements in the 60s all floated on a cloud of free love.
That's right.
Yep. and behave saying I like the right. I feel more comfortable, more cozy. I feel my vagina is safer on the right, and I would agree with that. The problem is not whether it's right or left. It's about the mechanisms by which you are using to come to your conclusions. And so if people are putting forth policies that you like, but they're being talked about and explained in a way that's meant to reach people who are woke, then it may be, there might be a specific thing that lines up with what you believe, which is why they're the woke right and not the woke left. But again, it's not the same thing as, just being on the right or the left. Shout out to equality and deference because vagina. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Said liked and shared. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much, sir. You know that those likes help the channel so much. And if you share it, guys, it doesn't even matter if you think anybody's going to click on the link. Just by sharing the video, it helps out and tells the algorithm that, yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, oh man. I had a hard time in high school because of all the Indian Bob and Vagine type dudes.
In the queer theory.
Well, those left-wing movements in the 60s all floated on a cloud of free love.
That's right. They did. But look at the Pride Parade. Okay, so we need representation and visibility for gay people because there's a repressive society. That's the excuse. It's the far right that won't let anybody come out. So they come out. And is that where it stays? Is that what they're actually targeting? No. You have fetishes. You have all kinds of perversion, degeneracy. I mean, I don't want to even talk about what it is, explicitly, which is an advantage to queer theories. Nobody will say what it actually says. Yeah, because it's so gross. Yeah. But what they were targeting were liberal societal norms, real societal norms, healthy. Let's forget liberal. Healthy, not degenerate societal norms about sex and sexuality.
Yep, they were not challenging the right, or at least recently, the Pride Parades have not been about challenging the right's oppression on anything. It's about pushing how far can we bring kink and fetish into normal life.
And the excuse was
degenerate's the right word too, I think, because I think one of the hallmarks, because if you are a relativist, you might say, well, who are you to place modes of orienting yourself in the world in a hierarchy?
No,
right?
sure.
Because you described some of them as degenerate. The reason that they're degenerate is because when they're employed, they degenerate.
Yeah, sure, of course.
So they're games that
I survived. Don't you?
Violate their own principles as they play themselves out.
But there's nothing about a guy in fetish gear at a parade in front of children, for example, that's challenging the norms of a repressive sexual society that thinks that, it should be procreative, heterosexual sex only.
Nope. That's just challenging normal stuff that we all agree is normal stuff.
That's an excuse. It's pretext. What they're after is the norms that hold regular society together. And my argument is that the woke right does the same thing. They have a cult of transgression too. They sometimes call it being based, but that's a completely bad word for what they're trying to describe, because based should mean based in reality, although the origin of the term is slang for being free based on cocaine.
That may be true. That's certainly not how people use the term based when they're using it unironically. But as with any slang, as it became something more popularized, the cringe level of people, it used to be a normal thing when somebody would say something cool that you agree with. That's like, oh shit, you're really hitting on something, based. But then, just like every other slang term, it's like, well, no, but you're just throwing this. That's not based. So, whether it has to do with the freebasing shit is irrelevant because, again, language evolves and it means how people use it. But now there is like a desire to outbase all the other right-wing people. I'm so based. I'll call all the Jews terrible. I'm so based. I'll throw the N-word out just because I can.
Based in reality, although the origin of the term is slang for being free based on cocaine. So they're out of their minds, right? It's just funny how this lines up. But what do?
Indeed. Help out our boy Sugar Daddy. Don't forget, guys, every single donation comes with a treat for Morty, and we want to hit that swole goal, so I am not so fucking puny. You got a bulk me up.
Okay, so the left has told us, the far left has told us, you can't be racist. Racist is worse. Everybody's a racist. And of course, they completely made degenerate the concept of racism, the word racism, the accusation, the sky is racist, going for a hike is racist. But they aren't trying to reclaim and say, okay, no, wait. Racism's bad. We don't want to be racist. And nobody should be racist. And the left completely ruined it. So we need to reclaim the term and have this healthy societal norm about discrimination and bigotry.
That ain't what's going on from the woke right.
What they're doing instead is saying it's time for us to be a little bit racist. The left said, don't be racist, so we're going to be really racist. And we're going to do it in order to make, to own the libs, as they sometimes phrase the thing, right? But
Yup. Anybody disagree with anything that he's saying right now? Because, again, we can get into the weeds of how specifically James Lindsay versus a Dave Smith is going to apply this term. But what we're talking about, it all fits.
make, to own the libs, as they sometimes phrase the thing, right? But really it's to reject woke culture is the pretext. They're not acting racist or blaming Jews for everything going wrong in society, or, getting further and further into the racial expression or the white racial consciousness or whatever, or the white supremacy or even white nationalism in order to challenge the left.
No,
They're doing it to challenge the center, the healthy core of society and its norms.
Well,
so that's the target.
That is the woke right. That is the woke right. We're going to hear that one more time. Because that's the way that those on the woke right would push back and be like, oh, you're just being like the leftist because no, I have decorum. I have a social standard that I don't want to, talk badly about people just because we have free speech. That's not why free speech exists. For you to be an edgelord and just piss off people because it's funny to you. That's some childish shit.
Getting further and further into the racial expression thing, right? But really it's to reject woke culture is the pretext. They're
the pretext. So it's like, oh no, everything is so woke. Therefore, I must talk about sexuals. Everything is so woke. Therefore, I must say that gay people shouldn't be allowed to do anything in society. When that's not even really what you would, it doesn't seem like that's what you really actually believe. You are just saying it because you think it wins you cool points, which again is some woke beta shit.
As they sometimes phrase the thing, right? But really it's to reject woke culture is the pretext. They're not acting racist or blaming Jews for everything going wrong in society, or, getting further and further into the racial expression or the white racial consciousness or whatever, the white supremacy or even white nationalism in order to challenge the left.
no.
They're doing it to challenge the center, the healthy core of society and its norms.
Well,
so that's the target. It's a cult of transgression, but they point in opposite directions. Left, in some sense, says, don't be racist. They say, do be racist. And this is, again, the communist fascist thing. We're going to liberate everybody. That's what the communists say. They come along. It screws everything up. And, there's all this oppression in society. We're going to liberate people from oppression and everything's going to be utopia. That's Marcuse in a nutshell. Okay.
Defined primarily by full sexual liberation.
Of course.
Well, that's always a part of it. But the whether it's, everything has to do with sexual liberation or not. The previous part, the point that James made is just spot on. You can see that there is a, so like, for example, I'm not somebody who is going to say, you can never say the N-word. That's the worst thing that you could possibly do. It's a word. But I'm also understanding that people don't like to hear that word. And so because I'm not a shithead, I'm not going to call, especially black people, that word just because I can't. I wouldn't want anybody to just, constantly be insulting me just because they can, even though I support their right to do so. You're still a shitty person if you do that. And that seems to be lost. Like, well, I could do it. Okay, yeah, you could do it, and you're a shitty, woke person. Shout out to Matthew King. Welcome to the party. Say the amount of anti-Semitism that has come to light based on Israel's treatment of Palestinians is insane. The idea that a New York Jew has any say in what happens over there is insane. They conflate religion and state, which drives me nuts.
Bingo.
Yep. I think most of us are pissed off with the relationship that our country has to Israel. But to connect that to, like you're saying, a New York, like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're just saying things.
That's Marcuse in a nutshell. Okay.
Defined primarily by full sexual liberation.
Of
You used this one yesterday.
course.
Right.
And
You know,
it all,
there is.
hold on. It all goes to hell. And so then the right wakes up, woke, and says, actually, I think the oppression is what was holding us together. So we should do more of it. And they create a hierarchy in society that's very rigid, again, with that Führer principle from the fascists. Because Mussolini had his lighter version of it. Hitler concretized it for Nazi Germany in 1933, following Carl Schmitt's book, The Legal Basis for the Total State. They created the legal structure for this thing. But the idea was that there is a hierarchy that kept society on the rails, and we're going to go back to that hierarchy in extreme pastiche form. And there's a reward structure socially for the people in the club to push the envelope and attack those normal, everyday societal norms in the center. So again, same energy.
Yeah, it's boring to just say, okay, don't trans the kids, but like if you're an adult and you want to trans yourself, then, you know, I honestly, genuinely don't care. And you know what? I might be happy that you are able to do these weird things that you want to do, because there might be some weird things that I want to do. Maybe not that weird, but either way, as long as it's not hurting me or anybody else, then somebody on the woke right could easily be like, oh, you're such a liberal. You're such a, like, and semantic obfuscation. Around and around and around we go. Shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. So the U.S. shouldn't get involved in religious wars. We're a country of freedom of religion. And I completely agree. I think that there is so much, there's so much to in the argument as to why we shouldn't be funding what's going on over there. People, especially in America, being Jewish is just a different thing. It's just a different, you can make it seem like the same thing if you are fucking retarded, but it's you know, not the same thing. I don't see a question. Yeah, I don't see a question. Post it again. And I just posted a political ideology chart in Discord. Oh my goodness, what do we have here? Taking a little side quest here. What are we looking at? So we've got communism all the way over here down to anarcho-communism. And this would be more anarchy, and then fascism. So I don't even like, this definitely does describe the landscape, but I still think that this is different than what we're talking about with wokeness, because again, wokeness is not any of these positions. You're not woke because you're in this box. 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 You're woke because whatever box you're in, you got there because of identity politics or conformity reasons or edgelord goals or shit like that. But yeah, this is definitely cool. I'm gonna throw this in the chat if any of you guys want to check it. It's not gonna fit. Let me get a tiny link. Copy that. Copy. And there you guys go. If you would like to check that out yourself. This is again what we are talking about, obviously with moderatism in the middle. Thank you for that, Amanda. And let's dive right back in.
Push the envelope and attack those normal, everyday societal norms in the center. So again, same energy, opposite direction, but the
same energy, opposite direction. Same energy, opposite direction. I put different direction in the title, but that's what I was quoting. Same energy, different direction. It's not about the positions. It's about the vibes.
Normal, everyday societal norms in the center. So again, same energy, opposite direction. But the point is the transgression, which they call queering on the left. We don't have a word for it on the right. They call it being based, but that's not the same as transgress. but it's still transgression.
Mhm.
And so same pathology for different reasons, same idea. Like Marx said, you go all the way back to the state of nature, you're going to combine it with the end. So you're going to become the man, the alpha man, who's also the omega man. In other words, the alpha and the omega of humanity. So you become God man,
yeah.
homo deus.
I said, I like fascism as long as I'm in charge. Agreed.
As Harari named it in his book Homo Deus. And then on the right, they don't go that far back. They don't go back to the state of nature. They're not interested in the state of nature. They're interested in the mythic past from which they've been dispossessed that never existed.
Damn, even Rumble is deleting chats, guys. That's why you got to make sure you are in the Discord. You can say whatever you want, including all of these nasty things that we're talking about. You can say them if you want to be that person. I personally choose not to really engage in that, but you absolutely can. And nothing will get deleted. Make sure you join the Discord.
They're interested in the mythic past from which they've been dispossessed that never existed, a romantic vision of who they were at some golden era in the past that they've been ejected from. But they're still now the alienated outsider. They're still the alien force came in, dispossessed them from who they are, and now they're going to claim it back. And the way they're going to do it is by organizing a fascist structure as an answer to the degeneracy, a very rigid structure, and in a too rigid structure in answer to the not rigid enough structure of communism. And then what they do.
Yeah, good point. Like, you can say whatever you want, and there's no screenshots allowed to leave the server. That'll get you an insta ban. But you can say it, but it's staying there.
Is the exact same transgression against the center to build their own power out in their local little cult against the big game of society. They're attacking the game of society to build their numbers with the hope of being able to replace it in both cases. So this is why I call these people woke. It's not just that they've gone on cancel rampages and struggle sessions. It's not that they've put me through a relentless struggle session since September without stopping, or, doxed my family and everything else in their wrath. They
like the woke do.
I said, James calls them all woke right, and they decide to prove me wrong by canceling me and struggling me and doxing my family and acting exactly like we all went through in 2015 when you stood up about the pronouns. And that's the thing, Jordan. Back then, you stood up and you paid. That was ugly. And you were right. You saw that when they said you will use these literally transgressive pronouns
or else,
you said no. And it's like the world lost its mind on you. And it's, looking back, it's almost quaint, but it wasn't quaint to go through. But the thing is you were right. And then Peter and Helen and I did the grievance studies papers, and we were right. So we were right. And I see the same structures, the same patterns, the same behaviors, the same reactions, the same explanations with slight modifications. That's the difference between communism and fascism as modern archetypes. And what I see when you can think of those as modern era mythologies for how society is supposed to be organized. And I see the same thing. And the thing is, we were right then and we're right now.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it as the hijacking of belief, right? That's right.
A nice phrase. It's a parasite.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. What else do we got here from Amanda? The intersectionality wheel of privilege. Oh my Lord. Do I even want to dive into this? What do we got here? So the intersectionality wheel of privilege. Okay, so power is at the center, of course. And then, so all these things are your oppression Olympics categories. So your skin color, obviously, if you're white, then they say you have the most power. But what this actually says is that it's actually reversed. So by being visibly Black, brown, indigenous, or Asian, then you get the most protection. Because they say that white people have the most power. Neurodiversity and mental health stuff, same kind of shit, that all the people who are normal have all the power. So if you have any neurodiversity or mental health issues, then you can justifiably talk shit about the people who are better off than you. Physical ability. If you're able-bodied, then you have all this power, so you can't say shit. But if you are okay, well, I would not put physical ability on this spectrum from able-bodied to invisibly disabled. I might want to say, fat and unhealthy. But point being, it goes all the way around. And the same thing with religion. I'll agree that, it is much easier to throw shade at Christians and have people, on your side than it is the other way around. Now, that one is, that's in constant flux. But look at the wheel. It goes all the way around. All the way around. Link in the chat. Thank you, Amanda. That is pretty well described. Did I miss anything here? Yeah. All right.
King of belief, right? That's a
right.
nice
Because
phrase.
it's a parasite.
Yeah.
And that hijacking of belief is this, just to take it all the way back to the Gnostic thing. That's what the Gnostic cults did before Irenaeus put them down. And then, Augustine comes along and mentions them all and says there have been 84 heresies or whatever up to this point by the 4th century. The Gnostic cults did the same thing. They splintered off from the true faith. They came up with the idea that they had secret knowledge. That's the gnosis. But look at what the cults were, like the Manichaean cult. The Manichaean cult is a absolute splitting of the world into total good and evil. It's not us.
And before he goes on, this is the very important reason why, when I talk about being agnostic, it is not the same thing as Gnostic religions. So a capital G Gnosticism is not the same thing that applies to my lack of knowledge as to whether or not there is a God.
The Manichaean cult is a absolute splitting of the world into total good and evil. It's not us and them. It's us and everybody else against us. And the idea is that the evil is embodied in the world, and the good have to slowly work to consume the evil and turn it to good. And eventually you end up with all good. But this Manichaean battle between good and evil is what Marx codifies on the first page of the Communist Manifesto when he says that, in a word, what he's talking about, the entirety of the story of history is oppressor versus oppressed. Mm-hmm. It's a fundamental dualistic metaphysics. There's no unity of society with a kind of melange of different people in different places working, playing different roles, sliding up and down the ladder. No, there is a fundamental dualism. You might move within each of those, but there's a fundamental dualistic structure, and they are in conflict. That's the first line of the Communist Manifesto after the famous preface. The first.
And so we can see, again, how very clearly how that manifests on the left. I should keep this thing open. Keep this thing open. So we can see how that works on the left, but it works on the right as well. And what did you just say?
That's the first line of the communist mental dualistic structure, and they are in conflict. That's the first line.
Oh yeah. So this is just, instead of white people are racist for being alive, it's Jews are bad because they're alive. Says the woke right.
Line of the Communist Manifesto after the famous preface. The first chapter, he says the history of man is the history of the conflict of contending classes, oppressor and oppressed. And he says that what it's going to result in is the revolution of society or the common ruin of the contending classes. So either the bottom's going to come up on top and take over, the splinter group is going to replace society itself, or they're going to ruin everything. They'll destroy everything that they can't have. And then we're looking at, beastly behavior, and I don't mean animals.
What's this black? We got to get rid of the black on the screen. How dare you? How dare you, Nick?
How dare you?
We will not accept that type of racism here.
Thing that they can't have. And then we're looking at, beastly behavior, and I don't mean animals.
So maybe we could lay out some of the behavioral markers so that, because we might as well make this concrete.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Let's go. Let's make it concrete. Notice he didn't say concretize.
I can tell you what I've observed about the behavior of psychopathic parasites online. Okay.
Sure.
Maybe if you have 5 of these, you're one of them. You know what I mean?
That's
so
often
any one alone isn't enough.
Right. Diagnostic criteria.
So in the comments sections, for example, anonymity is a marker.
Mm-hmm.
Use of
Oh, definitely a marker. But to be fair, it's not the most, if
the
you
worst-
guys are, it's not the worst thing in the world to be anonymous, as we discussed before. Like, you need to have some level of privacy, but it is a marker. If you guys are enjoying the show, the party rages on 24/7 over in our Discord. The link is pinned to the top of the chat and is absolutely free to join 24/7. We're in there hanging out, having a great time. And guys, it is absolutely free. However, if you are a member of this channel here on YouTube, you can scroll right below that video and hit that join button. Starts at $2.99. There's a few different tiers, but $2.99 will get you in. It gets you members only live streams here on YouTube, all that other good stuff. But it opens up the full Discord server. So we've got the free chat that is open to anyone. Anybody can join and talk. But as you can see, that is just one of our channels. There's a bunch of different channels here, including our disciple chat for members only, our word of the day watch party, where we're talking about all this stuff. And of course, we have the voice channel here, where we are hanging out at this moment. Shout out to everybody in the Discord server. Say hello and tell them to come and join. There you go, guys. Simple as that. See you there. All right, all right. And of course, remember, guys, that if you join tonight, you get free access to the entire server. You get a day pass to the after party. Come on through. It's a good time.
sections, for example, anonymity is a marker.
Mhm.
Use of a transgressive cover name, often satanic, often. So, and it's tongue in cheek, but no, it's not.
Yeah.
Derisive language, right? So that would be language indicative of contempt.
Yeah.
Contempt's a really toxic emotion, contempt and disgust. Hitler used disgust language to characterize the Jews, not fear language.
That's right.
And you destroy things you're disgusted by.
That's right.
You stay away from things you're
He
afraid of.
says in Mein Kampf that early in the book, in the second chapter, that one of the best moments, he doesn't say it's the best moment of my life, but he realizes, and it's clear that he's very happy about it, was the moment when he realized that the Jew is not a German and the German is not a Jew.
Right.
That's disgust.
Right. Absolutely. They use derisive and contemptuous, what do you call those? LOL is a good example.
Oh, yeah. Dismissive kind of.
Acronyms.
Yeah, acronyms. Okay.
Now, there's lulls culture online.
Yes, of course.
I do it for the lulls. And
That's a perfect example of an organic evolution of slang. And so when, we started using LOL, it just meant laugh out loud. It was meant to signify that I am laughing at this. And now it's more of it's almost like an article, an article like a or the, where it's just meant to signify, like, I don't mean this super seriously. But then you talk about the lulls, and now that's evolved. And so in the same way, the word woke is following that same trajectory.
acronyms.
Yeah, acronyms. Okay.
Now, there's lulls culture online.
Yes, of course.
I do it for the lulls. And that's a hallmark of sadism. Now, those people who do those things, so those are 4 or 5 things: anonymity, pathological nom de plume, derisive language, and then the use of these contemptuous and cool acronyms. Belittling, they use the word dude. That's a real good marker.
Yeah.
Or they'll use a derisive nickname to kind of equalize the playing field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this reminds me of, what was it? I don't remember. It was some sitcom where someone was talking about, a death in the family, and the boomer was texting back LOL at the end. And it's like, I don't think you're using that correctly.
Marker.
Yeah.
Or they'll use a derisive nickname to kind of equalize the playing field.
Yeah.
So
I'm Jimmy a lot.
You're Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Diminutive. They'll use a diminutive.
Jimmy concepts instead of conceptual James.
Right.
That started on the left and now the right uses it.
Like the woke. It's the same shit. When people will, again, we talk about this online anonymity, using names. Maybe 1 or 2 of you have your actual names here, and I will call you whatever you put in the thing. But if it's a trans person, then I'm expected to go out of my way to not only remember what your gender is, but then switch it in my head. And if you present as online as a girl and you have a girl's name, I'm not doing a bunch of extra work just to be based and own the libs and call you a man, because I don't fucking care that much. I don't care at all. And if you do, that's woke bullshit. Now, if we are talking about how Jordan Peterson got his start in the public domain, that you're being forced to say it. You're being compelled by law. Now, that's a whole different story. That is a principle being tested. But once you have that principle that, yes, I'm allowed to call you whatever you want, then the personal decision to say, I understand that your name is this and you want to be called this, but I'm not going to do it because I can't. It's childish. It's childish. I said, type Rick and Morty, I get Rice and Marty. Every time. There's a couple with, every time, it's been happening recently that every time I type people, Pepper will come up. I don't know why. I said, yellow is utterly psychopathic, according to Sam Vaknin. Yeah, Yellow's had its time. We can retire that one.
Concepts instead of conceptual, James.
Right.
That started on the left, and now the right uses it.
Right. Yeah. So those are.
Yeah, exactly. Because like if her name is Tits McGee, you're gonna say she. If her name is Equality and Difference because vagina. I'm sorry if I think you're a woman. What do we got from our boy Zippy DMV? Welcome to the party. Said woke is just corrosive and backwards dogmatic thinking. It's fundamentalism. Woke uses the same tactics as the fundamentalists of the 80s, 90s, and 50s. In that order, I think. Left and right is the same type of tranny. There you go. Welcome to the party and beautifully said. I need more seasoning in my vocabulary. I think my vocabulary is quite extensive. But hey, whatever you say. Because I'm not sure what you are. I'm just not going to use your pronouns, period. I mean, even to the, it's not, so let's say, okay, let's do a poll. So we're specifically and only talking about referring to people online. This is not an IRL thing. We are specifically talking about online. Would you go out of your way to misgender is in quotes because misgender or let's actually, I'll do dead name. No, we'll do misgender. Would you go to your rear misgender people if they present as a particular gender? So in this case, misgender is the left woke definition. That's why it's in quotes, because technically misgendering somebody is buying into their trans thing. So that's why it's in quotes. Online, would you go out of your way to misgender people if they present as a particular gender? Yes or no? Let me know. And it said, for me, it's mostly out of embarrassment that I don't want to admit or ask the difference. Well, I mean, they seem to love to talk about it, so I don't think that should be the issue. But for me, it's a matter of I'm not going to go out of my way and do extra mental work to be like, okay, this person is an actual man, right? I know that their name is Girly 5000 and the picture is a girl, but I think I remember that's a man. So I'm just not going to do that. I don't care enough about that to spend my own time and mental energy on that. And if you do, I think that's kind of cringe. Ty said I have about 9 alternate accounts because I'm a creative lunatic. And Jacques Boots, I'll go frowns a pound. Fair enough. One of both said, are we getting in there? Yep, word up. I said, I'll be your misgender. Matthew said, I usually just assume every single person I speak to online is a dude. They're all bud or bro. That is a good way to go. Most people in these spaces are men, but men, right? It depends on being an ass or not, right? Well, and that's that's kind of what Zippy was saying, but not just in Just generally speaking. No qualifiers there. We didn't add this in, so it's not part of the question.
Right.
That started on the left, and now the right uses it.
Right. Yeah. So those are markers. What else have I seen? An insane rise in explicit anti-Semitism. And that's been going on for about 5 years, and it's worse
Nazi,
all the time.
And Nazi apology.
Yeah, well, that's
which isn't just the apology
now.
too.
Yeah.
It's the transgression. It's the post the meme, sometimes meant to be funny, so you have plausible deniability, or the other social functions of humor come into play. But they'll post the meme of Hitler. Why? Because you're not supposed to.
Yeah,
that's why. So you have norms of decency around different things. One of those norms, in again,
me too.
Mainstream healthy society has been that we're not going to valorize Nazis. We're not going to lionize these guys. And you have, I'm not talking about the historians or whatever else that are coming out and rehashing David Irving or any of that. I'm talking about these, to use the word that's on the internet, shit posters who come and post pictures of Hitler with a smile on his face, or they're translating his speeches into English and clip.
And that stuff is not like, I'm not like, oh my goodness, you translated Hitler's speeches. How could you do such a thing? No, it's like, why are you doing that? What exactly are you trying to accomplish by doing this? Oh, to own the libs. Oh, to be based.
Who come and post pictures of Hitler with a smile on his face, or they're translating his speeches into English and clipping out parts where he's rousing Germany to a cheerful future. Oh, he just loves his country. That's one of the messages.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, somebody's triggered. Quality difference at a fucking course. We got to bring up the anti-Semitism nonsense. Does anyone ever ask why everyone hates the Jews? No, because it all came in, except for, I don't know what you were doing a year ago, but it started on October 7th, and everybody decided that we all hate the Jews again. I didn't hear about anti-Semitism in a common way since I was first online, when I was indeed an edgelord teenager. So I don't really care what you are saying. Clearly, you were not fighting against these things and bringing these up in an intellectually honest way. So if you need to just say, the Jews, then I don't care what your argument is.
To a cheerful future. Oh, he just loves his country. That's one of the messages they put. They love it. I'm sorry. Read Mein Kampf. Actually read it. He's utterly clear about the point of his state is to preserve the race, and the biggest pollution of the race, to preserve it against pollution of inferior races, and the most inferior race is the Jews.
Yeah,
absolutely clear. The demonization is absolutely visible in 25 when he publishes that, way before they say, well, it took until 38, 39, maybe 42 when Churchill got involved. That's when they had to really start hating the Jews. And that current.
He says people hate the Jews because they are not slave-owning Muslims. Sounds like it.
It's all the way back to the beginning.
So this shit posting problem. So that's part of the enabling of the psychopaths by the free social media platforms, right? By the costless social media platforms. Do you have any sense? So we're working out ways to identify people.
Swarm behavior, by the way, is another one.
Another marker.
Swarm behavior. Let's get into that. United said, Mr. Hitler was one of the most gifted public speakers in history. This is an undisputed fact, and his speeches should be studied to understand what dangers to look out for in the future. That is the proper context in which you are doing this stuff. We're talking about Amanda Price's ex-boyfriend, who was, what was it that he wanted? A Hitler or something or another? If it's for these reasons, then that's it's totally fine. Obviously, it's history. We live on this earth, and that is our species. The point is, we're talking about shit posters, and the shit posters are often, just like the woke people on the left, they often hide behind the people who do think that, okay, yeah, Hitler was really bad, but we can't deny that he was a great orator, and people, saw him as an influence and all that kind of stuff. That's not why they're saying it. That's not why they're saying it. They're saying it because they want to say, fuck the Jews. That's it. Zippy indeed does stay sipping. I said, I've read Mein Kampf. It disturbed me. Well, not surprising. Was a disturbing man. Zippy keeps hitting bullseyes tonight. Indeed. That's right. We don't hold it against you. It's just an example. You brought it up. Zippy said Mao was like Hitler, but killed millions more. Indeed. And for the same reasons, not somebody that if you're looking up to this person, be like, oh, cool, bro, that's based. Again, said Obama was a pretty good orator, too. We need to make sure we can see through the speeches and look at his acts. Bingo. I mean, yeah, the speeches were great, but the acts. As Amanda's boyfriend had a tiny mustache. Scheiße. What am I missing over on here? Zippy said the West uses Israel as a victim so they can keep the conflicts going. Yup. I thought Mao killed more than Stalin. No. Somebody get a fact check real quick on that. Quality said a shit poster is just a guy trying to piss people off, right? Essentially. And I think there is the added context of what I was just saying, that you're using topics that may have shreds of truth to say that Hitler was good at speaking. And you're hiding behind that reality to then lift up Mein Kampf itself and Hitler's work itself. That's shitposting.
Out ways to identify people.
Swarm behavior, by the way, is another one.
Another marker. So you'll get one of these derisive replies, and within minutes it'll get 600 likes on it. You don't know how that happened. From an account with 30 followers, and your reply somehow gets 600 likes in a minute or 2 minutes, and then everybody piles like a biblical plague of locusts.
And then they jump in on you and say,
"Okay, hey, that I will." I think from the entirety of the Indian Jesus, that was my favorite religious or biblical reference.
And then everybody piles
like a biblical plague of locusts.
The woke are like a biblical plague of locusts. Quality said Mao did kill more than Stalin. Zippy says Mao killed the most in proofs. I don't know what that is. You cannot count Stalin sending people off to die in a war as in purges per se. Okay, fair enough. I mean, neither of them are good dudes, but fair enough. Quality said Hitler killed many millions. Stalin killed millions more. Mao killed a million more than that. They're all not that good of dudes, if you know what I mean. I said I had a stuffed mouse when I was 3. His name was Mao Zedong. It was the 60s. I make no apologies. Well, based, bro. That's fucking based, dude. That's so cool and based. You see where we're going with it? All right, dive it back
600 likes in a minute or 2 minutes, and then everybody piles
like a biblical plague of locusts.
And then they jump in on you and say you got ratioed. Of course, a lot of it's bots that people bought. But what they do is they say, my comment was more popular than your comment. Therefore, you're not very interesting and we're very interesting. So we're ascendant. And by the way, that's psychologically really impactful if you don't know what's going on.
Yes, definitely.
You feel like.
And so, yeah, just because somebody says something that a bunch of other retards also agree with has no bearing on the validity of your own statement. So if I say something intelligent and the retard comes and says, well, atheism is just as much of a religion as anything else, and then I get ratioed on that, that doesn't make it true. It just shows a bunch of you are retarded.
The crowd, they tell me this all the time. We're all laughing at you. We're all laughing at you. We're all laughing at you.
Yeah, right.
It's very...
We're laughing right back.
Sophisticated psychological torment. Unfortunately for my antagonist,
hallmark of sadism.
I understand the game, and therefore...
Does it affect you?
Only when I'm not prepared for the pathway by which it comes.
That is a not profound, but that's a good statement, because what he's saying there is, if you're playing the game in the ways that I've seen it before, it's whatever. I can identify that, oh, yeah, you're going to say this, you're going to say that, and I can brush it aside because I've heard it before. But sometimes people are very good at coming with a new angle of some bullshit that you never even heard before. And it's like, I want to not give a shit about this. I want to not give a shit and know that this is just some person who has already forgot about me and my video, just left the comment and went on their life. I know that. But I got to respond. One info said Reddit has made it very obvious. Most of the realistic and or intelligent comments get negative voted into oblivion. Shut down Reddit. I mean, aside from finding illegal ways to watch TV, what is it good for? I said, they're all going to laugh at you. I said, I might like them to be ratioed or rickrolled or something. There you go. Own it. Are you guys talking to me? Zippy said the left is filled with race hustlers. So, of course, a few groups learn to use their tactics, even if they're not directly part of the left anymore. Bingo. Exactly. So Quality says to Zippy, you say race hustler, and I immediately think Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Bingo. Those are the woke left race hustlers. People like Nick Fuentes are the race hustlers of the right. They are woke. They are the same, just in a different manifestation. Same energy, different direction.
Only when I'm not prepared for the pathway by which it comes. When I'm aware of it, no. But when not at all, except maybe to encourage me. Somebody put up a meme of me the other day, and it shows like a guy building a castle standing inside the wall, a big giant guy, and it's me. And there's all these people throwing rocks, and it says on the meme, it says James when his haters throw rocks at him, and I'm building a castle out of all the stones they throw at me.
Except Dave Smith, who you won't debate. So but so United States, I DM'd you an article as to why what? Where am I? Okay. Who killed the most people in history? Where's my side quest thing? It's not as straightforward as you may think. How long is this? Okay, I'm not gonna read this whole thing, but we'll see where we get. So the candidates for who's killed the most people in history range from despotic leaders to imperial rulers, all who've killed millions of people during their bloody reigns. Human history scattered with blah blah blah. We got Genghis Khan, Hitler, Leopold II, that person, Colombian murder, Luis Gravito. So let's get the numbers. Who killed the most people in history? It's often suggested that it's Hitler, Stalin, who both saw millions die as a direct result of their policies. But recent scholarship suggests that the world's most murderous leader is China's Mao Zedong. The founder of the People's Republic of China ruled over the country from 1949 until 1976. During that time, he sought to reshape China into a communistic world power by any means necessary. Once in power, BBC reports that he put economic production under the ownership of the state, organized farms into collectives, and brutally suppressed anyone who tried to resist his new policies. In 1958, with his great leap forward, hoping to make China a competitive world stage, he set out to mobilize the Chinese workforce. But harsh policies forced millions from their homes, subjected civilians to punishment, and triggered famines. So do we have a number? Other leaders who killed people in mass? No, I want numero uno. Who's numero uno? So they're just saying, so when it comes to kill the most people, it's easy to think about rulers who could have killed millions, but some people single-handedly killed a shocking number of fellow humans. Okay. So this is more on why it's not so clear-cut as opposed to here's the true answer as to who did the most. But interesting. I'll put that in the chat if you guys want to check that out. Where are we at here? I lost my place. Oh, there we go. Nick said, racism, no, racism is racism, no matter who it's against or who has the feeling. Yep. Is it Simo or Simo? Was a sniper. He said, left and right are both progressive. It's not about tradition and reformation or revolution. It's about power. These days, for show. United said, Stalin was 69 to 79 million by many sources. And yeah, I also would not be surprised. They have definitely done some shady shit. And if the numbers are screwy, I would definitely believe that. Diving back.
Says James when his haters throw rocks at him and I'm building a castle out of all the stones they throw at me. And so, no, not so much.
Oh, wait, guys, we are past the 2-hour mark. So if you would like to keep the party raging, you know how to do it.
Except they can catch you off guard. They can catch you off guard. And what catches you off guard the most, and this is the power of the struggle session, what will catch you off guard the most is when one of your friends buys it.
Mm-hmm.
They see it and they go with the people that are haranguing you.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it'll get you.
You know, like all the Christians who give me shit for being an atheist, or all the Christians who give me shit for not hating gay people.
That's when it'll affect you.
So the proliferation of this kind of pathology.
United States seems to depend on who the mainstream wants us to hate the most things at the time. Yep. That's why you gotta think for yourself.
Yeah.
So the proliferation of this kind of pathology seems to be linked to
Another characteristic is the attempt to get people to distance themselves from you.
Let him talk, James.
I face that very
Right.
frequently.
Right.
You want to get away
Was that a weird cut, or did he just
from him to
do
get
that?
proliferation of this kind of pathology seems to be linked to
Another characteristic is the attempt to get people to distance themselves from you. I face that very
Right.
frequently.
Right.
You want to get away from him. He's contaminated.
Yeah, well, that's discussed terminology
That's right.
again, right? You're
That's
the
right.
carrier of something pathological.
That's right.
Yeah. So the social media platforms, so Musk's perspective, and Rogan's to some degree too, mine for that matter, is that the best antiseptic is sunlight. But there might be a flaw in that reasoning, and maybe you can help me think it through. When I'm sitting across from you, I bear the weight of my words, right? It's going to have an impact on the net, but it's also going to impact the relationship I have with you.
on the net. And this is kind of what Devon was talking about in Discord last night.
And so I'm constrained or regulated. I'm regulated in my utterances by consequences. And so there's never been a time really where free speech existed without reputational weight. Now, maybe pamphleteering and that sort of thing, but that's trivial compared to what we have now.
Right.
I mean, how many people can you get your pamphlet to? And what sort of effect is that going to have? That was back in the time of writing, but now your pathology can multiply virtually without end. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe it's necessary. I thought for Twitter, for example, that there should be two sections. There should be a section where people's identification is validated and a section for the anonymous trolls. And that should be demarcated. So you can go visit hell.
I'm okay with that because I as long as you're not like it is creating a hierarchy, as he was saying, but that's a justifiable hierarchy. That if you have your identity verified by the company, which you don't have to do, then your words should have more weight because you are less likely to be a shitposter. And so what I find most curious is many Germans outright defend Stalin, as does the American Communist Party members today do as well. Communists gonna communists.
Trolls, and that should be demarcated. So you can go visit hell land of trolls if you want, but you know that they're not real people.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that, as far as I can tell, is the digital ID problem. I mean, the net allows people to escape the reputational consequences of their psychopathology, their destructive,
For better or worse.
sadistic, corrosive, power-mad, hedonistic psychopathology. It's a terrible thing. And people have no idea how dangerous it is.
Oh, that's because they got us to back up anything that goes wrong, right?
But if you verify IDs electronically, then we walk down the route to Chinese totalitarianism, something like that.
Right.
As far as
The problem is, I don't want that to be a government thing. I want that to be a private company thing, where it's X's responsibility to protect that data. And if they can't do that, then they can't ask for it. And if they, if data gets leaked or something, then it's on them. Because if it's a governmental thing, then everybody's doxxed, and that's it.
I can.
And if you read the original documentation, Stanford University has its DigiChina project and translates Chinese documents. 2014, they're putting forth the social credit system, and they actually explain that the purpose of the social credit system is to achieve a perfect socialism, because it's not just a social control mechanism. It's a Pavlovian training mechanism.
Right. Nudging.
It's like your life becomes a video game, nudging you to hold the beliefs that the state wants you to have.
Well, the man who just got elected prime minister in Canada, he says two quite stunning things in his book, which no Canadians read because we'll leave that lie. 75% of the world's fossil fuels have to stay in the ground. Okay, that's proposition number one. And he's made that a centerpiece of his thinking for 20 years. There's no priority guiding every financial decision by every individual and every corporation that should be prioritized higher than decarbonization. That means every single thing, and then he says, of course, there'll be losers in consequence of that, but it's a price we're willing to pay. We have to pay the sacrifice of others. So this is a man who thinks that net zero is the proper game, and that if you were a moral actor, decarbonization would be your God.
Yeah.
Right? Regulate every single one of your decisions. Well, out of that comes the kind of pathocracy that you described. It's like, you've seen this already. There's edges appearing. There's credit cards, they were issued in Australia, that track your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Right. And at the moment,
oh, hell no.
I'm not in for any of that. Zippy said, the more freedom you give the government, the less freedom you have. Bars on bars on bars, Zippy. Freedom is a zero-sum game when you talk about the people and the government. What's a squib? I don't know what that means. Raising a nation squibs? I don't know what that means. Sorry.
you're still allowed to spend on whatever you want, regardless of at the moment. That's exactly right. And once you're fully trackable, well, then we know what'll happen. You know exactly what'll happen.
Yeah.
You'll be nudged in whatever direction benefits the power mad Luciferians. That's exactly what'll happen.
It's not just social control. It is social training. It is, operant conditioning. I was looking for the word. It's operant conditioning in its most sophisticated form, especially when equipped with the technologies of AI.
Put one in the chat if you are not familiar with operant conditioning, or you're not familiar with operant versus what's the other one? Did they just call it Pavlovian? No, but if you're not sure what he means by that, put one in the chat.
Conditioning in its
operant conditioning. BJ Skinner.
Operant conditioning. I was looking for the word. It's operant conditioning in its most sophisticated form, especially when equipped with the technologies of AI.
That's for sure, because the AI systems trained on your purchasing behavior, for example, will be able to predict your likely behavior with a stellar degree of accuracy.
That's right.
Everybody knows what operant conditioning is.
Right. I mean, the advertisements that you're fed already do that to some degree.
That's right.
So the only solution I can think of to this is because the digital ID solution seems to be troublesome, to say the least, means no privacy whatsoever, forever, fundamentally.
Yeah.
I guess it's exposing this and hoping that people make wise decisions. And I guess that's what you're trying to do with the woke.
I got there eventually. Idea.
Yes. Yeah. There are workable activities that could step into play. For example, a lot of times you'll hear, especially libertarians, talk about the revision to the Smith-Mundt Act in 2012, and now our intelligence communities, we know that our social media is awash with propaganda. Well, there are legal constraints that you can put at least on your own government to prevent that. You can if you want to have a task force for doing something in terms of, say, national cybersecurity, keeping Russian and Iranian and Qatari and Chinese bots and bad actors Pakistani. These are where a lot of these bot networks are coming from.
And when we have all that to worry about, is it really good for our political landscape to just be a over 40 edgelord? You could do what you want, but don't get mad at me when I fucking cringe the fuck out at your existence.
Keeping those influence campaigns, foreign influence campaigns out with a dedicated cybersecurity project is going to clean up a lot of it.
You think the administrators can stay ahead of the bots?
I don't think so. Actually, so far, not yet. I don't know.
No, that's I mean, that's another problem, right? Is that the system transforms itself so rapidly that it's very difficult to regulate it.
What I'm thinking is, Trump created a space force because of maybe space war or whatever it's supposed to do, and I'm not quite sure. But this is like, I don't want to make it a branch of the military, but I'm using it as an analogy.
I don't know. Maybe it should be a branch of the military.
Yeah, if you're not doing anything wrong, then there's nothing you should need to hide from the government. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's one of the yikes, the most yikes lines in all of history. Amanda said it's super Australian slang. That's why I said. That's why I said it does. They were talking about Australia. Gotcha. Yes, BF Skinner. I said I have a BF Skinner account at my pharmacy and a Jonas Salk account. Just seeing the names embossed in the Rolodex was very cool. There you go. And then United said we have an interesting meme. Let's take a look at that. So we've got communism, socialism, communism, and Islam. 62, 21, 49, and 300 million. Makes sense. I mean, I don't know where these numbers coming from, but it makes a lot of sense. The Islamists are the ones that we really have to worry about, whether we are atheist, Christian, or whatever. We are part, according to them, of the secular world. So whatever you want to do about that. Yeah, shout out to BF, not BJ Skinner.
I want to make it a branch of the military.
So I am assuming you guys all know what we're talking about when we say that, because this is relevant to what we're talking about. If you don't know what we're talking about, I have a video here to show you what we're talking about.
Sure, but this is like, I don't want to make it a branch of the military, but I'm using it as an analogy.
I don't know. Maybe it should be a branch of the military.
The cyber security or cyber warfare division, an entire branch that is dedicated to that, because this is a serious problem and again, the bigger the country, the more power it wields, the more likely it is to be attacked. Not to be rude to people from Botswana, but there's just not that much incentive to go mess around with their internet. There's a ton of incentive to mess with MAGA, which is informing Trump.
Well, we've already tracked too. Some of the groups that I'm working with, women 18 to 34 have political opinions that are way off center compared to everyone else. Plus, they're dreadfully miserable.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they get 80% of their news from TikTok. And TikTok is,
and of course, Marcus just gives a down thumb on the political thing that Amanda showed. Why? Who knows? Because he's an edgelord. I guarantee you, Amanda, ask him why the thumbs down. He won't have an answer for you.
Miserable.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they get 80% of their news from TikTok. And TikTok is a bot farm fundamentally.
Yeah.
And the algorithms are designed.
That is true, but I always have to make sure that I ride for my shit here. TikTok is infinitely better than X in terms of so many things. Aside from freedom of speech, it is way better. It is way better at getting different opinions. It is better at getting the types of content that you want to see. Even if it is like if I'm into politics, it will show me politics. But because I have trained the algorithm and I have the ability to do that, and I'm not retarded, then if I show that I'm interested in politics in general, it's going to show me politics on both sides. Now, if I'm retarded and I only ever watch shit that agrees with me, then yeah, it's only going to show me stuff that I agree with, stuff that agrees with me. But that's not TikTok's fault. That's your fault for being stupid. It is so much better at getting people who should be in conversation. That's all I got to say. All I got to say. But hey, shout out to Arrow. Thank you. I was like, where's the dog? Morty, come on up here. Come here and get your old treat, boy. Look. Up, there we go with the $5. Thank you so very, very much. That keeps the party raging on. Thank you so very, very much. And of course, that makes you the new co-sponsor of the stream.
And
$6 will own you that sponsorship spot.
TikTok is a bot farm fundamentally.
Yeah.
And the algorithms are designed to produce exactly the kind of upsetting pathology that characterizes female voters between the ages of 18 to 34.
Well, I mean, this is why woke is so
Depending on what you're looking at. That's how I can tell when you don't know what you're talking about, because all you've seen of TikTok is libs of TikTok or TikToks that are posted on YouTube Shorts, that the algorithm is not good. So you see a bunch of shit that you don't like. TikTok is the best platform at showing you what you want to see if you use it properly.
female coded. Everybody kind of wonders, what in the world is critical race theory? Why is it so female coded? It's because every bit of what we call woke on the left passed through feminism to mainstream.
Yeah.
So it was all built off of pathological women trying to figure out how to pathologize young women to join their club or
that's
cult,
for
really.
sure. That's
And
for
so
sure.
it all ended up getting twisted. If you look at communism,
Yet now, because you have all that was existing all over Twitter for its entire existence, yet you didn't have a lot of crosstalk on the people who were, the hardcore feminists and the people who were hardcore against feminism, unless they went out and sought each other. Whereas on TikTok, you'll get that shit. If you show TikTok that I want to see X, Y, and Z, be like, all right, bet, here you go. There's plenty of all of it. And you can talk to these people. And you can learn what people are actually, how people are responding to things, instead of it just being a more passive thing on X or YouTube or any of these other places.
women to join their club or
that's
cult,
for
really.
sure. That's
And
for
so
sure.
it all ended up getting twisted. If you look at communism, Soviet
That's part of that
communism,
oppressor-oppressed narrative.
Soviet
too.
communism was not a feminine endeavor, right? Brutal gun shooting, the whole thing. And there's a lot of things you could say about the snitch culture and all of this, but it's not like what we have now. But the reason is because the ideology passed in order to become viable in our society, to find the receptor sites. The receptor sites for Marxism in the West were overwhelmingly young white women. And it had to pass through feminism to be able to get the parasite to attach as a mind virus in order to get there, because that's what it was designed to do. On the other hand, therefore, you have young men who've been ravaged. Dave Rubin and I were talking the other day, and he said that you, as an individual, have done more than, and I believe him, more than any individual on the planet Earth to help young men who've had a hard time through all of this nonsense for the last 20 to 30 years.
I think that's fair. I think I can agree with that. Let's see if you guys agree.
They need a voice in the wilderness to reach and help and guide them and get them to, clean their room and all of the stuff,
And to identify.
I already know where Guamtech's gonna vote. So
reach and help and guide them and get them to, clean their room and all of the stuff,
And to identify the parasitic predators and keep them at bay.
So what we have now is we had a vulnerability complex that attached to young girls. Now we have another one that's rising in answer that's attaching to young men. So the tragedy for me, and I'm watching this, and I get, I'm integrated with the moms networks of the grassroots moms all over the country, right? And of course, these demons have come up with all kinds of salacious rumors to spread with regard to that, to discredit me and to remove me from their activity, which are all nonsense. But at any rate, what I'm watching is all these moms, I'm hearing from these moms already, who are telling me, they aren't using this phrasing, this is my phrasing, that they by the grace of God, their daughters didn't get pulled into the trans destruction mania, and now they're having to watch their sons get lured into Nazism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm so worked up about this woke right cult of transgression. I get it. You're a 15-year-old boy, maybe you're a 19-year-old boy, or a 25-year-old, maybe you're a 35-year-old who hasn't grown up and got out of his parents' basement, and you think it's funny to post a mustache man meme or two here and there to rile up the libs and the normal people in the left and everybody else.
Plus, you're irritated that your identity has been targeted for 30 years.
Yeah, of course.
On racial grounds.
And I think that's a part that we don't necessarily talk about enough. with wokeness, that it is a reaction. It didn't come out of nowhere. Now, the depending on the woke left or the woke right and what the actual issue is, that doesn't justify it. But again, we are here to understand what exactly that is, so that we can identify it and stop letting it permeate society.
Irritated that your identity has been targeted for 30 years.
Yeah, of course. There's
On
a
racial
reservoir thing.
grounds. Right.
Just like the way the Germans felt with the imposition of the Treaty of Versailles, if they saw it that way, whether we do or not, how the Germans felt about the French and broader Europe and the rest of their standing in the world.
Yeah.
Nick agrees with the poll. If you disagree, put a name who you would say is more of a helper of young men in society than Jordan Peterson. I said Theodore Gus was Dr. Suez, as his name is surprised. You'd be surprised to know he did not care for children. He had a wild playground in his backyard, all stripy.
What?
Is that like a predator thing that you're alluding to? Yikes.
And they were impoverished and they were broken down. It's the same powder keg. Or maybe that's not the right word. It's more like a tank of propane, because you're going to pump it up and get it to spray fire when it comes out the other end, right? It's like,
well,
like
one of the things people can watch, for everybody who's watching and listening, is beware of anything that's motivated by resentment. You know, the mere fact that you,
which is all of wokeness,
have had difficulties that are somewhat arbitrary, first of all, doesn't distinguish you from the main run of the human race. But if the motivation stems out of resentment, the probability that something horrible has got a hold of your soul is extremely high.
So I go back to the first thing I said, right? What's woke right? Well, it's woke people who act like, or call themselves conservatives. It's woke people who call themselves conservatives or right wing, right? So there it is. You just said it. They are people who feel alienated and dispossessed from their heritage, victimized. They're filled with resentment, and they channel it through left-wing or right-wing causes.
Left-wing or right-wing causes. It is a mentality. It is not the position. It used to refer to positions on the social justice warrior left. And now we are seeing that mentality exists as well on the right. And so it has evolved.
They're filled with resentment, and they channel it through left-wing or right-wing causes.
Yeah. You know, that's the story of Cain, eh?
It is the story of
Cain's sacrifices are not rewarded. He invites the spirit of resentment in to occupy his soul and becomes not only murderous, but the progenitor of genocide and the precursor to the flood, right? And the media, it's so interesting, James, because so Cain's sacrifices are rejected, and it's a little ambiguous as to why.
Yeah.
And then he goes to complain to God. And God says, he says, you think you're miserable because you're failing. It's like, you're not. There's lots of things you could do about failing. If you did well, you would be accepted, right? What you've done is you have allowed something terribly tempting that crouched on your doorstep to enter your house and have its way with you. And that's why you're bitter, resentful, and murderous.
Yeah.
Mind rape.
Has nothing to do with your failure. It's this additional variable, which is because the thing is, everyone, in a sense, this is true of heroes in mythology, everyone starts out lowly. Everyone starts out dispossessed. Everyone starts out oppressed, right? And there's angles of your identity that you can construe as oppressor-oppressed narrative with no problem. If you decide that you've been treated unfairly and now you have a right to resentment and revenge, then you're the monster that breeds genocide.
Yeah, so what does Cain do? He's rejecting the system that he has to succeed in order to be rewarded. Yeah. He's rejecting. So there's a system out there.
And
so what does he do though? He goes and kills his brother. Yeah. He goes and murders
his successful brother.
His successful brother. He goes so it's exactly the same thing. A lot of these guys that are pushing the woke right stuff, and there's nothing wrong with a new character coming on the scene. Every one of us was a new character. You were doing great work, obviously, and you have a body of work extending well before that as a professional. But then you spoke up in 2015 about that horrific pronouns bill, and you sort of became a different monster, a public intellectual. It's a curse word, I think, but you know what I mean. And this, my favorite moment ever. I was skeptical of you until I watched you talk to Kathy Newman, and then I watched you do the most effective.
You should have been skeptical
So what you're saying is,
Of me to begin with.
The most effective judo I've ever seen in a discussion in my entire life. And I said, I watched that I was gonna tell everybody how you were wrong. And I watched it and you impressed me. And I was like, I have to like him now. And so
how annoying is that?
Isn't it? Yeah,
for sure.
No, but
I remember watching that Kathy Newman debate. It was so wild how he was just talking, and she was so obviously just twisting his words. And he was like, what are you saying? Like, that's not what I said.
and I think that that's a thing. I was excited to start learning as opposed to being annoyed and resentful. I'm like, oh, well, I was wrong about this. I move on.
Right.
You know, but a lot of these fellas that are pushing the woke right stuff appeared in the anger and in the repression is the word of 2020, more 2021. They don't have a body of work extending before that. They just kind of came out of the ground.
And what is Nick saying? If the right could just leave their religion at home, they would be doing better. And look how good we're doing compared to the Democrats right now. Would you not want to do even better? Zippy responds, doing, not talking, is the best way to lead people to church. But they cheap out and blab and bother people. That's how it plays out. I said the mom converted from Catholicism to Jehovah's Witness. I don't know what happened to her. Yikes.
One, they don't have a body of work extending before that. They just kind of came out of the ground. And good, I get it. There was a lot going on. There were people making great commentary about liberty regarding the COVID policies. There are people making great commentary about the obviously critical race theory, cultural revolution running amok, and the queer theory later. So I'm very grateful to everybody who came along. But these people that have a longer perspective and a deeper body of work, it's hard because
that's a crucial. So that touches on Douglas's point too, is that to not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's right.
I mean, one of the things
institutions are corrupt, but due diligence matters.
Right. What has this person who's saying these things done, and to whose benefit is what they're saying? So you have these pretenders. I think this is, maybe we can end with this at this section. I think what we'll do, maybe on the Daily Wire side, is talk about the anti-Semitic trope, but I'd like to introduce that for a bit. I don't understand it exactly. I don't understand why the woke right, for example, is particularly capitalizing on anti-Semitism. Do you just think that that's a particularly daring and attention-seeking transgression? Is there?
Yep. I mean, being racist got so watered down over the last however many years that, you know, if you're just talking about black people, then whatever. If you're just talking about, or any particular race like that, that's old news. If you're talking about misogyny and that's old news. Or rather, that's a left-wing. It is an old conversation, but it's also a left-wing position. But the attention-seeking transgression that we're talking about here creates a need. I need to say something that will get me attention, that will make me be more based than anybody else. So I'm just going to say, the Jews!
Attention-seeking transgression are they proclaiming that?
No,
they'll violate something sacred because that's how brave they are?
Nope, they're not that smart. But yes, that is what they think they're doing.
This is a yes and.
Okay.
Yes, it's this transgressive. Also, they know good and damn well that there are certain transgressions you can't come home from. You go too far down that road, there's no way back. And not because your new friends are going to call you names like a sellout or a cuck or dual loyalties or whatever. There are certain lines you go down and you don't get to come back. And they know that. So they get to trap people there. But this, I believe, and we will probably or possibly disagree on this, I think that there are particular malevolent actors that are pushing this who have grander designs than getting clicks, getting an audience, satisfying their own narcissistic urges, transgressing boundaries. I think that
whatever he's about to say, the notion of it's about more than clicks for some people, absolutely agree. If we look at someone like Nick Fuentes, then to act like his only goal is to get clout and views and stuff like that, that ain't it, baby. He is trying to be someone. And there's so many people out there that the easiest way to do it is the edgelord version.
makes total sense if I were to say China's supporting all of it. And if I had evidence, you'd
And
believe me.
Iran.
Oh, China, Iran, Qatar, Pakistan, like the Arab League, Russia, and the deep state, possibly. Trump is a problem to something. We can tell by the way that they've organized the Trump derangement program that's just screwed Canada royally, but has deranged Americans. I have family members I can barely relate with still because of Trump derangement. I was obviously cast out in disgrace from the last vestiges of the left when I said I was going to vote for Trump and said publicly on a podcast, Make America Great Again. They lost their minds and said I went crazy. And so Trump is something, right? There is a lot of reasons besides just the fact that he's the sitting president of the United States of America. He's doing a lot of things to this global order that are disruptive and in a good way, in all likelihood. There's a lot of motivation to take this man down. And if you can fragment his base by getting them to argue about Israel good, Israel bad, that's a deep cut that you've just taken and cloven MAGA in half. So all it takes is one event, something that goes down in Israel, and Trump takes a side, takes the Israeli side, and bang, they can pull the thing apart.
Done. And it can be the same way that the left wing, the Democrats, had a stranglehold on society, on culture, on politics. And wokeness came in like a virus, a demonic virus that it is, and destroyed them. You give me a reason why you think that is impossible to happen on the right. I'm willing to hear it. I just don't think you're going to be right. So I want to give a big shout out to Tijuana Border Jumper, as well as Arrow, our co-sponsors of the stream. Thank you so very much, guys. I know it's late. You could be doing anything in the world, yet you are here hanging out with me and Morty, and that does not go unappreciated. I really do appreciate it, whether you can donate or not. Definitely, if you can't, then the best way is to make sure that you like the video, you share the video, comment after the stream. That is a huge thing I gotta start asking you guys to do as well. Just once the stream is done, keep the page open, scroll down, and just put Morty or the Overlord or something. Just get it rolling. Those things help just as much as giving me money. And so honestly, if it is between giving me $2 or making sure every video is liked, shared, commented, and watched, I would rather you do the latter. I think we are really doing something here, guys. Yeah, the show is fun and we're talking about these things that are important, but the community in Discord, that is really what is important. We are building something and it's going to take time and we're going to have some rough areas. But as I've said so many times before, we are way closer to the beginning than we are to the end. We just watched my first ever reaction video that I did before I was even the Indian Jesus last night on the Sunday stream. And it was not great. And I look forward to looking back on this and being just as cringed out at myself because I'm that much better and we are that much bigger. So guys, thank you so very much. Again, this is Morty, aka the Overlord, and I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here. Don't forget to join the after party. Peace.